Shelley Taylor says former friend Nicole Hickman owes for the return of a 1999 Chevy Malibu. Nicole is countersuing, claiming Shelley vandalized the vehicle.
Miss Taylor, according to what I read in your complaint, you and the defendant were friends. There came a time, you're going to tell me about that time, when you lost your driver's license and you needed a car, you needed transportation. So you made an arrangement with Miss Hickman that you would purchase a car. The car would be titled in Miss Hickman's name. You would also pay for the insurance, with the understanding that she would take you to do your chores, take your children wherever they had to go. It is your complaint that subsequently you had a falling out and she stole your car. Ms. Hickman says nothing could be farther from the truth. It was her car. It was always her car. And when you came to pick up the car because of something that had to do with a boyfriend, you were so angry that you couldn't get the car that you smashed all of the windows in the car, and she has a counterclaim. When was this car purchased?
It was purchased on July 27th, 2005.
And what was the purchase price?
$4,000.
Where did you buy it?
We looked in the penny saver, and it was bought through somebody at a house, and then it was bought under AMN Auto.
Who went to look at the car?
Me and Nicole Hickman.
Why did you lose your driver's license?
For DUI.
How many DUIs?
I've been convicted of one. I was arrested for one previous, but I wasn't convicted.
Do you have your license reinstated at this point?
It'll be reinstated the day I get back to Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm eligible.
Who put down the down payment on the car?
I paid for the car in full, in cash.
Do you have any proof of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You looked for a car together?
Right.
Why?
Okay, I had a 98 Contour that she had gave me a couple years back when she had lost her driver's license for the DUI.
Just a minute. When you say she gave it to you as a gift?
Yes.
That's untrue, Your Honor.
Well, this would be helpful to you. It shows what a nice person you are.
The car was wrecked, and it wasn't in the best condition. However, I made an agreement with her that she paid for it to get out of impound, because I already purchased another car before this. I purchased an '89 Buick, and I did give her the title because she is my friend.
Okay. So you gave her the car?
For $250, and she was supposed to pay me $250 more.
Okay, but you didn't.
Over favors and stuff, we wrote that off.
Okay, go.
Okay, so the transmission on the car went out. Now, previous to her having the baby, Michaela, I had drove her around to doctor's appointments, wherever she needed to go, basically, which I had for years. I was going to get the transmission on the Contour fixed. We started looking at cars because I was going to go ahead and put... Okay. I was going to go ahead and put the money that I had for the transmission on my car, which was $1,500 at the time, towards a new vehicle, which she was like, you know, why don't you just get something new? We were going to get a place together. She was my girlfriend. She wasn't my friend.
That's untrue, Your Honor.
Shh. Go.
Okay, we looked in the penny saver. I found a Malibu. I had wanted a Malibu for a while since my friend here had purchased. I drove the car. I only had $2,000 at the time for the car. Shelley told me that she would go ahead and give me the rest of the money. She had just received a $30,000 settlement from a previous lawsuit that she had against an insurance company, and said that she would pay the remainder that I didn't have for the car. We were going to move in together. It would be my car, but it would get her around as well, and her kids. It was going to be like the family car, and that's what happened.
Show me proof that you paid $2,000 towards the car.
I don't have a proof that I gave her anything because I gave it to her in cash, but all I have is like my pawn slip where I pawned my necklace to get the Contour fixed, and I have forms of unemployment that I had. I know it's not proof that I gave her any money.
It isn't.
You're right.
All right, so we have proof and we have no proof.
I paid for the car in cash.
You don't have any proof.
I have a bill of sale.
No, the bill of sale said that you purchased the car.
Yeah.
So that you could register it. I understand. Okay. Who's Shelley Taylor? Who's Linda Taylor?
That's my mother.
So your mother gave you a $4,000 check.
Yes, ma'am.
So this check is not made out to the person who sold the car.
No, ma'am. They wanted cash.
Can I say something to that?
Got it. I got it. Now I got it.
Okay.
So you have this much proof. She has no proof. Good. Now, so what happened?
I got the car registered. She paid for my insurance. We went to a lady that she knew.
Okay, she paid the insurance.
That's right.
How much was the insurance?
Ma'am, it was $668.
So far you paid $2,668 according to you.
That's right.
Not according to her, but according to you.
That's right.
She paid for more than half of the amount necessary to get this car on the road, despite the fact that the car was titled in your name.
Right, but it wasn't
Shh. Just the facts, ma'am.
Okay.
So far, she paid for more than half to get this car on the road.
Okay.
Despite the fact that it's titled in your name, because she can't have a car titled in her name because she has no driver's
In the
license
state of
and
Florida,
she can't get
you can.
insurance. I'm speaking.
Sorry.
In what month did you two have a falling out?
On August 10th, according to her paperwork, which I'm not sure the exact date, I have a police report, she left her son with me on the 9th. I guess from what I found out, her ex-boyfriend that she had just had a baby with was getting out of jail, which I did not know because I was under the understanding that
Don't
me
tell
and
me
her were
what your
together.
understanding was.
Okay. So the old man gets out of jail. She leaves all night long with the car. I call her the next day. I have her son. Okay, I call her to get the car.
Did you take the car that day?
That's untrue, Your Honor.
Where was the car?
It was parked at my parents' house.
Just a second. You didn't use the car? Boyfriend
ma'am.
didn't use the car?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Next.
So the next day, she comes to my house and gets her son in the car. I tell her that I need the car. She says no, that she is not giving me the car back. She took it
Who
to...
was driving?
She was driving.
No license.
That's right.
Got it. Go.
So she took the car and went to her mom. She took off before I even came down the stairs to even know what was going on. She grabbed her son, half of his things, left his shoes, everything, took the car, went to her mom's house. I called her. She said that her boyfriend was out, Ryan, they were getting back together, and she said that I wasn't getting the car back. So I went over there and with the police, well, not with the police at first, I just went to get the car. She came out with a hammer, started beating the car with a hammer. Her neighbors called the police. The cops came. They had made me tow the car because she took my registration.
Let me see the police report. You think the police tell the truth?
Yes.
You think that they are trained to do adequate reporting so that all the facts are contained in a police report?
No.
Well, they are. And according to the police, Ms. Hickman, you advised the police that the two of you bought the car together, you giving $1,500 towards the car, and the plaintiff giving $2,500 towards the car.
Mm-hmm.
Shh. I didn't ask a question yet. So you told me a moment ago that you put in $2,000.
I did.
Well, were you telling me the truth or were you telling the police the truth?
I'm not sure if the police was going by her information
No,
or
the
mine.
police said, listen to me.
Okay.
Listen to me. N. Hickman, that would be you.
That's right.
Advised, that means said, told, conveyed, indicated. That means they were speaking to you. That the two bought the vehicle together. N. Hickman, that would be you, giving $1,500, and S. Taylor giving $2,500. So I'm going to get back to my question. Were you telling me the truth when you said that you gave $2,000 towards the car, or were you telling the police the truth?
I was telling you the police. I paid.
You were telling you the police?
No, I was telling you the right. I paid $2,000 for the car.
So you were telling me the truth
That's
and
right.
you lied to the police?
I guess if that's what it says.
Yeah, that's what it says. Your proof is getting better.
Thank you.
Because according to the police, the purchase date was the 28th of July, and your check from your mother to you was the 27th of July for $4,000. And one of the things you both agree on was that the purchase price of the car was $4,000.
That's right.
And you have no proof that you gave her either $1,500 or $2,000.
No, I
Is
don't.
that right?
That's right.
Good. It's getting better. Okay. Now, let's come back to you. Naughty, naughty. One should not have lost their temper. Why did you smash the car?
It was out of frustration because I've been friends with Nicole Hickman for over 6 years, and she put the trust in me that I could trust her, that we could do this together so I could have reliable transportation, and she completely broke my trust. She brought the police to my house and said I stole her vehicle. I was just so frustrated, Your Honor. I lost my temper.
Don't lose your temper. Have you ever lost your temper before?
Yes, ma'am.
Ever been involved with the police for losing your temper?
With my DUI.
So it was a DUI and you got into an altercation with the police?
Yes.
How many children do you have?
I have 2 children, Your Honor.
How old are you?
I'm 24 years old,
How old are your children?
3 years old, and 2 months old.
And what was the father of this baby doing in jail?
Possession of crack cocaine, driving without a license. It was his first time seeing his newborn child. We are not together. He's incarcerated again, so I don't have to deal with him.
Miss Taylor, you're 24 years old, and so far what you've indicated to me is you're a 24-year-old with very lousy judgment.
Yes, Your Honor.
And until you grow up, I suggest you not have any more children.
I'm
and
not.
concentrate on the 2 that you have. And don't bring any bums into their life. You know, if you're going to be a bum magnet, that's your problem. But if you have children, you have to treat the children a little more carefully. You got it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. Okay. Where's the car now?
It's in my possession. I have the title for it, everything. It's my car.
Good. Give it to me.
I also have information people she sued. I mean, this is something that she does.
Listen to me. I don't care how many people she sued, madam.
Okay.
I find that you have absolutely no stake in this car. You paid absolutely nothing towards this car. This is a copy of the title.
That's right.
Did you figure out how much it's going to cost to get the car fixed?
The estimate is $1,729.
Listen to me. Court will enter an order that the Department of Motor Vehicles is to transfer title to the car in your name. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Because this is a copy, so I can't have her sign it.
Okay.
And I'm entering a judgment on your behalf in the amount of the car if she does not turn the car over to you. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the damage to the car that you caused was $1,700.
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to have to eat that.
She had got a check from her insurance company already to fix the car.
Let me see.
Now, she knows the lady that works at this insurance company.
I pulled that off the internet. I had the policy number.
I don't care. Did you get a check?
Did I get the check?
From the
I
insurance
haven't
company.
received the check.
Payment was $1,229.
I got a stub that says that I am allowed to take the vehicle and get it fixed.
Oh, fine. You turn that over to her. Good.
No,
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm not giving the car back.
I'm not getting my car back?
Yes, you're getting it
She
back.
just said that, Your Honor.
Oh, yes, you are.
Thank you.
James Elmore says his sister, Shauna Padilla, owes for loans to make her mortgage payments. Shauna is countersuing for damages to her property.
Mr. Elmore, the defendant is your sister.
Yes, ma'am.
And according to your complaint, you loaned her the money to make her mortgage payment for about a year.
Yes, ma'am. It was about 10 months, probably. Yes, ma'am.
And you loaned her that money with the understanding that if she did not pay you back, the title to the mobile home would be put in your name.
Yes, ma'am. Either or, some kind of assurance that I'd get something out of it.
And Ms. Padilla says that there was never an agreement that you paid her mortgage, but that was like rent because you were, in fact, living there. Now, explain to me how it came about that your sister and your mother were together in this mobile home.
Well, I moved to Mexico, and after I moved there, my sister had my mother move in with her. I was down there about 5.5 to 6 months. I came back in, like, July.
Where did you stay when you came back to work in July of 2004?
For the first, probably month and a half, I stayed at her trailer.
So from, let's say, July and August.
In August, I was in California, in San Francisco.
When in August?
The 1st of August, I got a job traveling, working in refineries.
So you spent 1 month with your sister and your mother?
Probably about that.
Is that about right?
I wasn't there during that timeout.
Who was there?
She was there, ma'am.
All right, so you say she was there. So you lived there for a month in July. When did you have this conversation with her about the mortgage?
I'd say it was in June, the end of June.
So before you moved in?
Yeah, I was still in Mexico before we had this conversation.
So in Mexico, she called you and said what?
That she's a couple of months behind on her payment. They're about to repossess it, and she moved my mom in with her, and I didn't want my mom to be, stuck out because she didn't pay her bills.
So
I came back, and I got a job building swimming pools and started paying, And
Okay.
she said that she wasn't working because she was waiting on a workman's comp thing to come through, which after a while,
Ms. Padilla, don't speak to him. At my stage in life, I can only hear one person talk at a time.
Yes,
Otherwise,
ma'am.
I get confused.
But after a while, waiting on her workman's comp or whatever to start up so she could pay her own bills, it got kind of old. And she was quite a bit behind, about $1,100, I believe.
You were living in the trailer for the month of July.
Yes, ma'am.
So I would assume, at least for the month of July, you were going to pay some rent.
Yes, ma'am, but this month of July, I was paying the month of May's rent. I was paying her back payment.
If you paid her the back payment for the month of May, how much did you pay for rent in July when you were living there?
Well, I never had a set payment, I guess I would owe for that month of rent, but...
I guess you might.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you were working, right?
But see, none of that... Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
You don't think that she should pay for a time when you were living there and not paying rent?
Yes, ma'am, but I was paying her bills too, evidently, because she was not working. She had no income coming in whatsoever.
How much in total did you pay towards this trailer?
Trailer and utilities.
Trailer.
Trailer, I don't really have an exact on just a trailer, but I would just send money orders, and whatever they put it on, that was that.
That was nice of you. I don't hear anything about a loan.
Yes, ma'am. That's what all this was a loan.
Well, that's what you're telling me, sir. That's not what they tell me.
Yes, ma'am. But I would not have come back, to pay all her bills. I was living in motels this entire time.
Not in July.
No, I got that job in August.
Not in July.
Or the past 5 months.
Listen to me. Shh. Where have you been living the last 5 months?
A couple of months I was there. But then she got mad because of cell phone, so she told me to get out of her house. She ended up calling the police to have me removed.
Miss Padilla?
Yes, ma'am.
But anyway, my roommate here, he was having to loan me money because I was sending all my checks
I'm
in.
talking about the last 5 months, Mr. Elmore. Where were you living?
I've been living with him for the last month and a half. And a little while I had to live in the shed next door to the house, believe it or not. The night after she called the police, they made me leave and told me I couldn't come back. I stayed in the shed for about 3 weeks.
Mr. Elmore, you and I are not coming together on the same wavelength.
Yes, ma'am.
Explain to me why you have a case of a loan.
Well, because
all of those things.
I paid off her trailer payment. Her trailer got paid for, and it all came from me, ma'am. Over $4,000 worth, and I was not living there.
Oh, Mr. Elmore.
I didn't have it separated.
Mr. Elmore.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have an argument with your sister?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
What was the argument about, Mr. Elmore?
It started over the cell phone. She asked to borrow my cell phone, I wouldn't let her.
Why?
That just, I don't know.
You didn't feel like letting her?
Yes, ma'am.
So
no,
what
I
happened?
had no reason, but I just told her no. So
Fine.
She told me to get out of her house, and I told her no. I said I paid all this. So she said it's in her name, and...
So she said it's in her name, get out of my house.
Yeah, exactly. I refused to leave. Well, she called the police.
And what happened when the police got there?
They made me leave. I left.
Is that when you filed this lawsuit?
It was a few days after that, when I was living in that shed. I was watching the TV, and I just happened to see your show, and afterwards I called,
What is your last name?
Elmore.
Miss Elmore, who do you live with now?
I live in the trailer with my daughter.
What about her?
She has moved into the trailer with me and my daughter. She lived there.
So that when I ask you a question, I expect you to give me a full answer. You live in the trailer with your daughter and this lady.
Yes.
Who
yes,
else
ma'am.
lives there?
Just the three of us now.
Who pays the bills?
All three of us. Yes, ma'am.
Now, who was paying the bills, say, last July, August, September, October, November? Was your son paying the bills?
My son paid a lot. He did. I have never denied that, but I was paying too. It wasn't just Mike paying.
And your son contributed, according to him, some $4,000 over a 13-month period. Is that right?
Actually, it's more than that, but I've lost several receipts.
Now, Mr. Elmore, would you be here today if it wasn't for this cell phone incident, sir?
Yes, ma'am. It had been going through my mind for a long time, because I wanted my money back.
Well, you're not going to get all your money back, sir. You lived there for
I'm aware of that.
You lived there for 4 months.
Yes, ma'am, I'm aware of that.
Ma'am,
yeah.
He came back in March, and he did not leave again until the end of August, the last week of August.
No,
March, April, May, June, July. So it's 6 months.
Not the last week of August. It was about the middle of
August.
So the date on the last receipt I had was 5/5 of 05.
Just a
so
second.
that's May. That's not March, ma'am.
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you saying your mother is a liar? She says you were there March, April, May, June, July, and part of August. So is what you're telling me that your mother is lying to me?
Yes, ma'am. I'm saying I was not there then.
Now, tell me, in March, he came back for how long?
It was about 2 weeks, I believe. And then he left out for the job. He never actually got to work on that job. He got sent back right after that.
And when did he come back?
I probably at the end of March.
So was he living in the trailer in April?
Yes, ma'am.
May?
Yes, ma'am.
June?
Yes, ma'am.
July?
Yes, ma'am.
And part of August?
No, ma'am,
Yes,
I was
ma'am.
not.
And part of August?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the previous July he was there when he came back from Mexico?
Yes, ma'am.
For 1 month?
Yes.
Miss Duty, she says that I was there before then. Like I said, I got the date on the first receipt that I paid is 7/14 of 04. I was paying a May 15th bill because when she called me, she was 3 months back.
Listen to me, Mr. Elmore.
She got her dates confused, ma'am.
No, Mr. Elmore, listen to me carefully, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Your sister does not deny, nor will she deny to me today, that she called you and said, I've gotten behind in my bills.
I didn't call him, ma'am.
Or contacted him, or whatever, and said, I need some help. She's not denying that you gave her some help because the mortgage was behind. What your family is saying to you is you lived there for a longer period than you've indicated to me today, not just a couple of days, which you say in your complaint, you know, that your employer pays for your motel and that's where you were living, that you were living there for a period of at least, according to both your mother, who I believe, and your sister, July, part of March, April, May, June, July, and part of August. So at least 6.5 months. And for that, living there for all of that time, you contributed $4,200. That's pretty reasonable. You have a roof over your head, you have gas, you have electric, you have food, you have whatever else it takes. And if you helped your family out for another 3.5 months, you don't come in here and bother me about that. What you're annoyed about is that your sister, for whatever reason, after you said she couldn't use your cell phone, told you to leave. So you got annoyed. And then you had nothing to do, so you went and watched me on television and said, aha! I'm going to go and file a small claims court case. Mr. Elmore,
Well,
Mr. Elmore, get a life. Case is dismissed.
Excuse me, may step out.
Excuse me.
I have a counterclaim.
It's dismissed.
Okay.
If he bothered you, annoyed you for a year, and you let him bother you and annoy you for the year, that makes you not too smart.
I moved out of the state to get
Very
away from
good. That's exactly what you should do.
20-year-old Michael Schaefer is suing ex-roommate, 22-year-old Jacob Tyler, for damage to his property. Michael claims Jacob removed items from the apartment and left them outside.
All right, so I have some preliminary questions. Let's listen up very carefully, and let's start with the ground rules, which are everybody tells me the truth, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. You two were roommates for
Yes.
a period of time. Which one was the neat one?
I was.
And who was the slob?
He was.
I wouldn't say I was a slob. I wasn't as anal retentive as Jacob.
He had roommates that
This is your complaint. Mr. Tyler moved out before the end of the lease.
Yes.
Mutual?
were. Yes.
Yes.
The lease was to expire on May 31st of this year.
Yes, ma'am.
On May 31st, you came back.
To verify.
I like to tell the story
Okay,
myself.
I'm
I
sorry.
could do this as a one-man show, except that I need sometimes some input from you.
Okay.
You came back to ensure that he moved out on time because you were still responsible on the lease,
Yes.
and they had your security deposit,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
And when you came back, you found Mr. Schaefer not being a slob, a little disorganized. All of his stuff is still there. The place is a pigsty, and you start to clean it up.
Yes.
He leaves. Where did you go on May 31st, by the way, when you left?
It was about 10 o'clock at night. I went home to go to sleep.
You went home where?
To my parents' house. I moved back in with my parents.
When did you move back in with your parents, Mr. Schaefer?
I had been moving things into their house over the course
When
of
was the last time you slept in this apartment?
the morning of May the 31st.
Now, you have to be very careful because I'm going to put you in between a rock and a hard place, sir. When you went back to your parents' house to sleep at 10 p.m. on May 31st, you were aware of the fact that the next day you were supposed to be totally out of the apartment, or midnight that night,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
But you went home at 10 o'clock,
Yes.
and you still had a lot of stuff there.
Yes.
Well, that's why you're here, Mr. Schaefer, because it is your claim that you had a lot of stuff there that he took out and set outside, and it was either ruined by the rain or stolen. So it's a lot of stuff. Let's see how much stuff you say was there. $713 worth of stuff.
About
Well,
400 of which was the TV.
Why didn't you take that stuff and have it out when you were supposed to?
I hadn't realized how much stuff I had accumulated. I didn't realize how long
You
it would
mean
take.
it just came up and bit you on the behind? And if you did, why didn't you, instead of going home at 10 o'clock at night, Mr. Schaefer, stay up until midnight and get all the stuff out of there?
I was very tired.
That's too bad.
I figured we could settle up with the apartment. We could pay for an extra day just to get the rest of my stuff
You
out.
weren't going to pay for anything because the security deposit was his.
We would have settled afterward.
I don't believe you. And after you got your stuff out, stop playing with your papers, Mr. Anal Retentive.
Sorry.
You were supposed to clean it after you got your junk out.
I had been cleaning that day, and Jacob actually came by the apartment to clean and to patch holes that he had punched in the walls because he had quite an anger problem.
Just a second. So you had been cleaning that day?
Cleaning.
Is that what you're telling me? You had been cleaning that day?
Yes, I vacuumed the carpets. I was moving my stuff out, just going through the whole process.
Mr. Schaefer, you're full of baloney. Your stuff wasn't out of there. As far as I'm concerned, the landlord could have taken your stuff and thrown it in a dumpster at midnight. He's not responsible for your stuff after midnight.
I cleared it with the apartment manager the following morning.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Where is the manager? I want to interview the manager.
We don't have that manager
Well,
here.
that's too bad because that's hearsay. When a lease is up, it's up.
Before I left the apartment, Jacob was patching the holes up, and I had said, you know, I'm going home. I'll be back in the morning for the rest of my things. Don't touch anything. He said, okay, fine, and we left it at that.
Is that what happened, Mr. Tyler?
Yeah.
What happened?
I told him that it was unacceptable because when I got there, the fridge still had food in it. There was no cleaning done in the kitchen. The vacuum that was there wasn't even being used on the carpet. I cleaned a bathroom that they never cleaned since we moved in there. It was beyond filthy. I came back to actually patch up the holes in the wall.
What were the holes in the wall from, sir?
From me and parties that they had been at, and I got upset because there was all these kids that were underage drinking, and I have pictures to prove that they were.
Do you have any proof of what this place looked like when you got there?
I have a witness, but she's in the Air Force boot camp right now, and I can't
help you there with that.
I know.
I have no
I'm sorry.
control over the Air Force.
Yes, ma'am, I know.
I like to think I would like to, but I don't. Mr. Tyler.
Yes, ma'am.
You had $440 in security deposit?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you get any back?
I had 140, and I have a copy showing the amount which was taken out.
Can I see that, please?
And also at the top, ma'am, this is the part where I had the power turned off, and Mr. Schaefer was supposed to get it turned on in his name. He didn't. So the apartment took care of it. The apartment charged me for the water, the trash, the electric that he accumulated.
So you lost your security deposit?
Yes, ma'am. And the added rent was for...
Now, did you patch up the walls?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Because there's nothing here about patched walls.
I have this also that says that there's new contact, lots of resident damage into...
Well, it doesn't say here anything about charging you for holes in the wall.
No, that wasn't...
Which means that
they
you
were
patched
charging...
I'm speaking. Listen to what I'm saying to you. It's not here to hurt you. I said there is nothing that indicates from the apartment complex that they are charging you for holes in the wall. That would be a good thing. Then
Yes,
you say, you are right. You are correct, Judge.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Where did you put whatever stuff of his was left outside?
I moved it underneath the stairwell of the upstairs. I covered it with blankets. I wrapped his VCR in bubble wrap. Unfortunately, he said that it rained the next morning in the area.
What happened when you came back the next day? So first of all, what time did you come back to the apartment the next day?
About 9 in the morning.
And what did you find when you got there?
I came there with my girlfriend. This is Nicole. We came there with her truck to get the rest of my stuff, and we came up to the apartment.
Just a second. Step up. Your last name is?
Sierra.
Miss Sierra, when did Mr. Schaefer pick you up?
I came to pick him up with my truck at a little bit before 9 a.m. on June the 1st to go retrieve the rest of our stuff.
Had you been there? What do you mean the rest of your stuff? Had you been living there too?
No, I just...
Some of her stuff was in there. I'm sorry.
Don't speak.
My couch cushions and my vacuum was there.
So my question is, had you been living there?
No, ma'am.
Had you been staying there?
Yeah.
Don't play with me. Had they used your truck to move the other items? Don't look, listen to me. Don't look at him. Don't you have an independent recollection of this? I asked you, had they used your truck to move out the other items?
Yes, some of the other stuff.
How many days had they used your truck?
Probably about 4 days.
Good. And where were you the night of May 31st?
I was at home.
Doing what?
Resting. I work 30 hours a week, and so I was just...
Oh, my God, 30 hours a week. Oh, you must be exhausted. How old are you?
I'm 23.
23, and you work 30 hours
and
a week?
I go to school full-time.
Good. What school do you go to?
I just graduated from the North Lake Community College in Dallas, Texas.
Good. So you graduated from college, and I know from college. I mean, I know how many hours a day one goes to college. So 30 hours a week working, you can manage. So you were exhausted.
I wasn't exhausted.
What about you? How exhausted were you? Where do you work?
I worked at Metro Volkswagen.
And you also go to school full-time?
No, I'm not in school currently.
You work 40 hours a week?
Yes, ma'am.
So you work 40 hours a week and don't do anything else. You've got a girlfriend who works 30 hours a week and goes to school full-time, so you should have been pretty wide awake on the 31st. I don't see what you needed to go to sleep for at 10 o'clock at night. You have no case, sir. He is not obligated to risk his security deposit because you decided you needed an early nap. He secured your stuff as best as he possibly could. If it was ruined by the rain, that's your problem. You should have had it out by May 31st. You owe him $440 for security deposit. Because you lived like pigs, then you have to pay for that. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
24-year-old Brandy Evans is suing Kathleen Fry and her ex-boyfriend, Patrick Leach, for damage to her car. Brandy claims Patrick was riding his bike when he crashed into her parked vehicle.
Ms. Fry, are you the neighbor of the plaintiff?
And not of the plaintiff, of the plaintiff's witness.
And this is your boyfriend?
Ex-boyfriend, yes.
How long has he been your ex-boyfriend?
Since about last November.
And how long was he your boyfriend?
About 18 years.
That took you a long time to decide he wasn't the right one. Huh?
Sometimes you don't think.
Was there any particular reason why you terminated the relationship?
We just weren't getting along anymore.
Did he drink a little bit?
No, he never drank.
Never?
Before we started going out, he drank, but he never drank during our relationship.
Now, you were riding a bicycle.
Yes, ma'am.
With your girlfriend.
Yes, ma'am.
Where had you been riding?
We usually rode 10 to 15 miles a night, just around our neighborhood and just around our block and so on and so forth.
And at what time of the evening did you return to the house?
It was probably between 8 and 8:30 in the evening.
So it was dark?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you always ride at night?
Yes, we did. It was
have
mostly
lights
at night.
on your bikes?
No, we don't.
Are you supposed to?
Yes, we are.
Probably.
Probably,
yeah.
Do you wear a helmet?
Yes, I do.
For what?
Safety reasons, in case somebody pulls out in front of me and
Right.
Right.
That's why you have lights on bikes if you're going to be riding at night. And so tell me what happened, Mr. Leach.
Our street was very dark. It has no street lights. I was pedaling, and her car is the color of night. It blended in, and it was parked, if I could show you on the diagram, it was parked probably a little farther back, but it was, to me, it was illegally parked. And it was on a corner. I was pedaling, and I looked up, and next thing you know, under the tree, next thing you know, I hit the front end of the car.
Okay, so Mr. Leach, we are talking now about certain things that you can do nothing about, because as night follows day, that's science. And in science, it's going to get dark outside. So when you're driving a vehicle, what they do is when a vehicle is operating, they put lights on the car so that you can see where you're going after night falls, right? So it's not the night's fault that you hit the car.
Oh.
Now, cars can be painted in many colors. It's not the car's fault that it was painted the color of night, right?
Correct.
So it can't be the car's fault that it was that color. Now, how long do you think this big tree has been living on the corner?
I couldn't tell you.
10 years?
Since before he moved in.
Yeah.
The tree didn't move, right?
Correct.
So it can't be the tree's fault that you hit her car. And the last thing that you said was her car, you believe, was parked illegally.
True.
But the car didn't move.
Correct.
There was only one thing that was moving. Mr. Leach, that would be you.
I totally agree.
Now, Miss Evans, tell me, you were awakened to the alarm going off in your car?
No, we were watching a movie. I was over at my friend's house.
And what
happened? It was around 11 p.m., and I heard my alarm going off.
So the alarm did go off as a result of being hit?
Yes. So I walked out, and they weren't near my car. They were walking away from my car. And I walked down and looked at my fog light, and my fog light was broken on the ground. And I walked back up halfway to the driveway, and that's when Kathy stopped me.
Had you known her before that evening?
No.
So you never met her before?
No.
She walked up to you and said?
And said, we were riding our bikes, and my boyfriend hit your car. And I looked over at him, and he was laying on the grass with his bike.
That's not true.
And
shh, Mr. Leach. Shh, Mr. Leach. Look.
And Kathy said she was going to run and go get her information, and that she did not want to go through the police. She did not want to go through insurance. That she wanted to pay cash. And she walked back over and said he had some to drink, and that here's her information to put estimates in her mailbox, and that she would get back to me. And she gave me her number. She gave me her work phone, her cell phone.
Miss Fry, did you write down your telephone number, your work number?
I gave her my business card.
What did you give her your business card for?
For the purpose of, I had walked over and explained that he had hit the car and that he was lying on the ground because he had hurt himself when the bike hit the car. And I said, I will get you the information and you can get estimates and the two of you can work it out. I brought her the information back over. I never stated that he was drinking because he wasn't. And I never stated that I would pay her cash because I am not the one that hit the car.
What do you want to say?
I was standing there and listened to her state that she would pay Brandy in cash to settle the matter.
Tell me your last name.
Curran.
How's Curran?
I've lived there approximately 6 years.
Okay. Mr. Leach.
Yes, ma'am.
There is no reason why Ms. Fry should take responsibility for this.
Exactly.
So if the court were going to enter a judgment, it would have to be a judgment against you.
Correct.
So that, Ms. Fry, you may sit down. Thank you. Now, sir, you're there all on your own. In 10 seconds, give me your best shot as to why you're not responsible for this.
I never said I was not responsible. I took the car. But what I am disputing is they brought over estimates for $1,400 for the car, which to me was a little outrageous. We told them to get another estimate in a local place. They've done work on our cars before, and they were more reasonable. They've probably given a reasonable rate. They never went there.
Mr. Leach, let me stop.
Sure.
A second. Is it that you don't like the amount of money that she's asking for because you believe it's excessive, or that you don't believe you're responsible?
The amount of money, and then we had an estimate for $1,400 and $1,600. Now it's $1,800.
Well, now she's going to show me the estimates.
I have
and the photographs.
The first estimate that I gave them, that was for the $1,400. When I gave it to her, she asked me to go and get another one with their body, a place, and it shows it was only a month afterwards, not even a month after the accident, that I have for that quote.
Just a second. What was the name of the body shop where you wanted them to go?
Boulevard.
This is one of those from Boulevard?
Yes, and that's my third one.
Can I see it, please?
We never got that one.
We never got those.
I don't care whether you did or not. Now I have them. So am I correct? Boulevard gives you $621.72?
Mm-hmm. That was just the paint that they said. They didn't say anything about the hood. That is, I have pictures of my hood and where it's not aligned with the other side from where he fell on it. And
Your Honor, I did not fall on the hood.
I have your handlebar marks on my hood.
Well, there is damage to the hood. All right, anything you want to say?
I just, I want to know. She got an estimate from Boulevard, for just paint. Well, you know what? To me, if I'm going to get an estimate for the body work, I'm just not going to ask for paint for the $600 and something. I'm going to say, hey, it's just, I need the body work done. I don't understand that.
I went in and asked for an estimate, and that's what they gave me. I didn't ask them just to do paint.
Did you ask them for an estimate to fix it or to paint it?
To fix it. I said I needed it fixed.
The damage to this car can't be done for $600. She's got something wrong with the hood of the car that's going to have to be pulled out, painted if it's going to be done right. The $1,300 is a reasonable estimate. Okay, judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,360.64. Thank you.
Thank you.
Helen Levi says her daughter's ex-boyfriend, Dion Burdett, crashed 2 of her cars. Helen says on the second occasion, Dion was driving drunk.
What's your first name?
Jennifer.
Jennifer, this used to be your boyfriend?
Yes.
Your mother's complaint is that on 2 separate occasions involving 2 separate cars that she bought for you, you allowed Mr. Wonderful over here to drive the cars and he totaled them.
Yes.
The first incident, there was insurance and there was a $500 deductible. Second instance, she bought you another car. You again allowed, what's your first name?
Dion.
Dion, to drive the car because you don't learn from your mistakes. And he totaled the second car.
Yes.
Then you decided you had enough.
Yes, that's correct.
When was the first accident, Dion?
January 26th.
Tell me about that.
I asked her to leave me the car in case I needed to go.
Were you living together?
Yes.
How long had you been living together?
Approximately 6 months.
You asked her to leave the car. Why?
In case I needed to go somewhere because I didn't have insurance on my vehicle at the time.
Where was she going?
She was going to school.
And what were you doing that day?
I just sat at home all day until I went to pick her up and had an accident.
Was that a weekday?
Yes.
Well, were you going to school at the time?
No, I wasn't.
Were you working at the time?
No, I wasn't.
Why not?
I'm not really sure, Your Honor.
Well, how long was it that you weren't working, Dion?
Approximately 3 months.
Who was supporting you? Get her a copy of that book, Beauty Fades, Dumb is Forever. You were supporting him?
I wasn't really supporting him. My parents were helping me pay the rent. I was just helping him out.
So your parents were supporting him?
They were.
News to me.
See what you find out? Mm-hmm. What do you do for a living?
I'm a housewife.
And your husband?
He's an investment representative.
So he works?
Yes, he does. Very hard.
How long have you been married?
22 years.
In the 22 years that you've been married, how many months has your husband been out of work?
None.
Never?
Never.
Right? Never. How old are you?
22 years old, Your Honor.
Before you moved in with Jennifer, where were you living?
At my parents' house, Your Honor.
What does your father do?
He is an airplane mechanic at O'Hare Airport in Chicago.
Do you ever remember a time when your father sat around eating bonbons for 3 months and not working?
No, I don't, Your Honor.
Why do you think that is, Dion?
Because he has children to pay for, Your Honor.
Because he likes to eat.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like to live in the street.
No.
Now, when you left your parents' house, were you working?
Yes, I was.
Where were you working?
Cub Foods.
Doing what?
I was in the meat department, cashier, dairy.
What happened to that job?
I lost it.
Why?
Due to too many absences.
Why were you absent?
I was sick, road conditions, stuff like that happens.
What was wrong with you?
I had the flu. I mean,
for 3 months?
No, not for 3 months, but I mean, I was out of work for 3 months.
All right, now let's get to the first accident, Dion, because I've tortured you about your responsibility in growing up long enough, because even I'm getting bored with it. I don't know if I'm getting through to you, sir. If you want to be a grown-up and live out on your own, you have to work. 22 years old, still not fully cooked, probably, but that doesn't mean you live off the kindness of strangers. She's a stranger to you. She has her own children, and if she's supporting her daughter, and if her husband is supporting her daughter, they don't have to support you, too.
That's true.
Thank you. So you asked her to leave you the car just in case she wanted to go looking for a job that day.
True.
I almost forgot how entertaining this could be. Sort of forgot how dumb people can be. All right, so you kept the car so you could go and look for a job, but you didn't go and look for a job. Where did you go, Dion?
I didn't go anywhere.
You mean the car had an accident in the house? How did that happen? Explain that to Officer Byrd. He would really like to hear that.
I was on my way to pick her up from school, Your Honor.
Had you gone anywhere else that day?
No, I haven't.
You just stayed home and watched Oprah?
Yeah, I guess. That's what you say.
No, you tell me what you did.
Oh, well, I didn't watch Oprah, but
what did you watch?
TV.
You watched me.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. Like I said,
you would have watched me more frequently, Dion, you would never be here today. Never.
That's true.
Happened.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, so you went to pick her up from school, and what happened?
I was at a four-way stop. I stopped at the stop sign, looked both ways, looked forward. Nobody was going, so I started going. Here comes a car. Bam. Took off the front end, airbags, everything.
Okay, so this car came out of nowhere.
Well, it was sitting at the stoplight, at a stop sign, when I looked left, and it wasn't going, so I just barely tapped on the gas, just started going, and then here comes this Mustang out of nowhere.
The plaintiff says you got a ticket for failing to yield.
True.
So then I guess the accident was your...
No.
Did you pay the ticket?
No, I didn't.
Did you have a trial?
Yes.
Were you found guilty or not guilty?
I didn't go.
Well, if you didn't go, then you were found guilty?
No, I wasn't, because they still got the insurance money.
We're not talking about insurance money, we're talking about ticket. You got a ticket for failure to yield. My question is a very simple one, Dion. You have to pay attention. I know you've been resting your brain for a long time, so you should be able to pay attention to what I'm saying to you. Ticket. Did you pay the ticket?
No, I didn't pay the ticket.
Was the ticket dismissed?
Yes.
Was it dismissed after a hearing?
I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't even want to go there anymore. Right? All right. So that's the first accident. And that car was totaled. You had a $500 deductible.
Correct.
When your daughter called you and told you that the boyfriend had totaled the car, what did you say to her?
I didn't know the boyfriend had totaled the car right at first. It was some time before I found all the facts.
She told you she had totaled the car?
She said it had been wrecked.
How did she tell you it had been wrecked?
It went through a stop.
It went
intersection. The road conditions were icy. Had a lot of ice on the road.
Who did she tell you was driving?
I finally dragged it out of her that he had been driving.
Did you lie to your mother, Jennifer?
I had just told her that I was the one who got in the wreck because I didn't want to have to
deal with...
Yeah, I didn't want to deal with the whole...
All right, now that was January 26th. And then you said, okay, I'm going to get her another car because she needs a car to go to school.
Right.
How much money does your husband make?
Not enough to be buying her a car every year or two because he wrecked it.
Now, when did you wreck this second car, Dion?
On or about May 20th.
Tell me about that.
I had dropped Jennifer off at approximately 10 o'clock p.m.
Where?
At her friend's house. Told her specifically...
Was this a Saturday or a Sunday?
Saturday.
Where were you working then?
I was, believe...
That's not so long ago, sir. Where are you working now?
Painting.
Portraits? Houses?
No,
What?
houses.
Houses. You're going to have to stop paying me if you enjoy this job so much. When did you start painting houses?
3 months ago.
So that would bring you into June. Now, so in May, were you working?
No, I wasn't. I was in search of a job due to previous legal problems.
What kind of legal problems?
Truthfully?
No, I want you to lie to me.
I mean, I can if you want me to. I'm not going to,
Don't
though.
be a wise guy, sir. I will grind you into the carpet. Go ahead.
I got a felony and
For
about
what?
distributing marijuana, 1 ounce, 10 to 30 grams.
That's what you were doing. Now I understand. In between painting and meatpacking, you were distributing marijuana.
No, I did a favor for somebody that I thought was a friend and obviously wasn't, and told on me, and I got in trouble for it.
So it was somebody else's fault.
No, it wasn't anybody else's fault but my own for trusting somebody else.
So you were doing a favor for somebody, you weren't going to get paid for it.
Right.
You weren't going to get a piece of the action
No.
for it. At least if you were selling it and making some money, I could understand that. You're a real idiot. All right. So now you're looking for a job. And in May, you dropped her off at a friend's house and told her...
Specifically that I was going to a local bar and I have a few drinks and I'd be home early. Turns out I had a few too many and got a DUI. I blew up .242, had a fatal accident, could have ended my life. Life-changing experience.
Just a second. Wasn't fatal.
No, it wasn't fatal. I mean,
You
it
have
could
to
have
watch
been.
your words with me.
Right.
You have to watch your words.
Sorry.
You didn't kill
Let me
anybody.
read it. No, I didn't kill anybody, but it could have easily happened. I ran into a pole going 70 miles an hour.
So why aren't you responsible for the car, sir?
She willingly gave me the car knowing I was going to the bar. I didn't pressure her. I didn't put a gun to her head and say, give me the car. She said, okay, be back early. And I accept full responsibility for drinking and driving.
That's okay, because I'm going to enjoy this. Just go ahead and do your thing.
So your defense is that it was not your fault that you were given the car because she should have said, you can't take the car if you're going to drink. Leave the car here and go, take a bus to go to the bar.
I accept full responsibility for drinking and driving. I'm paying for it dearly. I have the papers right here to prove it.
How are you paying for it?
I have 100 hours community service. I have $1,900 in fines, and I lose my license for a year or maybe more.
Well, how does that help Miss Levi?
I've given Jennifer $600 already.
You've given her $6, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So you accept responsibility for this accident. It's not Jennifer's fault.
No.
Jennifer is stupid.
It's not Jennifer's
Jennifer's going to read the book, cover to cover, backwards and forwards. Don't hook yourself up with a loser. If you hook yourself up with a loser, you're a loser. What kind of school are you going to?
At the moment, I'm just working full-time. I'm trying to save money so I can go back to school.
If you're going to school and moving forward and your family is trying to help you get there, you don't hook up with a loser who's unemployed. You don't hook up with was he arrested for this distributing marijuana while he was living with you?
No, that was way before I met him.
But you knew about it?
I did find out about it eventually.
Well, it seems to me Dion kept a lot of things from you. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,400. Thank you. That's all.
Bourbon McDaniel is suing her daughter, Glenda Julius, for the cost of her granddaughter's funeral. Glenda says her mother is heartless.
Miss McDaniel, the defendant is your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
Your complaint is really a simple one. And your complaint is that you made 2 loans to your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And she has not paid you back. Your daughter says that these were not loans, they were really gifts. But the matter becomes more complicated because of the nature of the loans that you claim to your daughter. Miss Julius, you had a daughter who was murdered.
Yes, ma'am.
When was she murdered?
September 24th. She was found dead in her room.
In your home?
In her home.
Has the perpetrator of that murder ever been found?
There are 3 people apprehended as of right now for first-degree murder.
How old was your daughter? According to you, Miss McDaniel, you went to where your daughter was living, and your daughter did not have money for a burial.
That's right.
You agreed to loan her the money for the burial.
Yes, ma'am.
Subsequently, your daughter, who was not happy staying in the same house where her daughter was murdered, which is quite understandable because people had not been apprehended at that time, asked if she could relocate, and you agreed to loan her some money.
Yes, ma'am.
So that she could relocate. What was the extent of those 2 sums of money The funeral was how much?
$4,582.27.
And how much did you advance your daughter to relocate?
$1,487.68.
The matter becomes more complicated because at some point, Miss Julius, you ascertained that there was a crime victim's compensation that you could apply for.
The DA.
The DA?
From Carroll County.
Told you what?
Told me that there was a victim's fund relief.
And what was it for?
It was for expenses for Jessica's death. And I have been making payments.
Just a second. Expenses for Jessica's death?
Yes.
Which included her burial?
Which my mother gave as a gift.
Listen to me very carefully.
Which included, yes.
So the state of Tennessee had a fund which provided for the survivors of victims of violent crime to give them money so that they could pay for burial?
Yes.
And other related expenses?
Yes.
You applied for that?
Yes.
And you got a check?
Yes.
How much was the check?
One was $5,300 and the other one was $1,024.
Can I see the paperwork surrounding those two checks, please?
There was a few gas expenses.
Can I see the paperwork? For the...
This is exactly what
Bert, I'll take a look
but
at
I
it.
have more different, I have receipts to where I have been paying my mother.
Just a second. They paid you $5,307.27 for the funeral. And then there are other related expenses, moving expenses. Are you telling me that you have proof that you gave some of this money to your mother?
Yes, I have.
I'd like to see it, please.
I have receipts. Here, this is it for money orders. She told me that her payments were $70 and $40. I talked to my sister Gail that's standing next to her over the telephone. She was in California. I talked to her and she said, have you been giving her money? I said, yeah. She told me $70 and $40 on her credit cards. And that's exactly, I've been giving her a little bit more.
Well, I see what you're talking about. You gave her $30, $40.
And it started on 11/3, excuse me.
I understand that, but these are very small amounts of money. When did you get the check from the state?
In April. She told me it was on credit cards, and as long as I was helping her out, there was no lump sum that I was supposed to give her. She knew I would have to go home. I have a headstone to purchase for my daughter, which is $910, and I'm working at a minimum wage job. I moved out because it was so unbearable to live with her in her house.
Let's go back a second. You got this money, which is about $6,500. What did you do with it?
I've been living on it, and also I have money set aside to buy Jessica's stone and money set aside to go home.
Well,
because
so
I cannot live.
Just a second. You just told me that the stone is $900.
$910.
Fine. And did you order it?
I've already talked to...
Yes. Don't play with this. Did you pay for it?
Not as of yet.
Why not?
Because she started this lawsuit.
What's the name of the company that's going to do the stone?
Memorial Gardens.
Well, you certainly have $900 for the stone because you got $6,500. And my problem with you, Miss Julius, is because this is not a very difficult case. Whether your mother said to you, as you allege in your answer, it's the least I can do to give you the money for the funeral, right? That's what she alleges you said to her, or not. The good people of the state of Tennessee did not provide this money for you to live on. The good people of the state of Tennessee wanted to ensure that your daughter had an appropriate burial. So you cannot take their money and do what you want with it. You have to take their money and pay for her funeral. That's what it was earmarked for by the state. Because whether you and your mother, according to you, you colluded to defraud the state by her signing papers that said she's going to pay me back, and she really didn't mean that you were going to pay her back, that's a fraud on the state. I can't sanction that. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm working in a dry cleaners. I'm having trouble dealing with the public.
What kind of work did you do before your daughter's death?
I was working in a convenience store, third shift.
Your mother paid for the funeral. according to the claim that you put into the criminal injuries compensation claim for Jessica Dawn Julius, the funeral was $5,307.27. That's what you told the state, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the funeral was actually $45.82?
The difference was donations from the school where Jessica went.
What?
I have a paper that states each and every one that gave donation to funeral.
Can I see it, please?
Yes. The family that Jessica was, Lisa Stevens' family, were there and willing, and the whole town was willing to help out with this. My mother is the one that wanted me to move. I left everything I owned.
Listen to me. I'm not talking about the moving. I'm talking about the fact that you cannot take this money and live on it. I have to make a judgment whether the person who actually paid for the funeral, and that's your mother, or you who did not pay for the funeral, are the rightful recipients of this money from the state, which is earmarked for your daughter's burial expenses. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
And there were some very nice people from the town who also sent checks in for the funeral. But that's not the issue. The issue really is a very simple one. Whether your mother, at the time that your daughter died, and I believe that she probably did, say to you, this is a terrible time. I don't want you to worry about the funeral. I'll take care of it. Because that's what a parent does. But then when you found out that there was a possibility, because you said that the district attorney told you that there was a fund, that was after your daughter was buried, correct?
Yes.
So after your mother laid out that money, and probably would not have sought to recoup it because you have limited circumstances, that'd be a fair statement. But after she found out that you were going to get this money from the state for the funeral, the right thing for you to do was to give it back to her.
I've been giving her close to $1,500.
No. That may have been fine, Miss Julius, giving her $30, giving her $70, until you got $6,500. Once you got $6,500, you had to say, Mom, clean up the credit card, pay it off, because that's what this check was supposed to be used for.
Yes,
Do we
ma'am.
understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Let's not pursue this any further. Your family has had sufficient amount of sadness to last for a lifetime. So you have the money, and even if your mother is awarded the $5,000, you still have money left over for the headstone, and then some. Right? Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Jenny Rose says ex-roommate Sheena Mashoud owes for the return of rent and a security deposit. Jenny also claims Sheena slandered her via the internet.
Miss Rose, you rented a room from the defendant, and according to your complaint, you were forced to move out early.
Yes.
You want prorated rent.
Yes.
You certainly want your security deposit back. And you want compensation for what you say were very nasty things that the defendant posted about you on the internet.
That's correct.
The defendant says that you chose to move out. You don't get compensated for choosing to leave before the end of the 30 days. That your cat did some damage to the rug, so you don't get your security back. And she acknowledges she wrote nasty things about you on the internet, but she said everything she wrote about you was the truth, and the truth is a perfect defense.
True.
When did you move into this room, Ms. Rose?
On May 1st. On April 22nd, I answered an ad.
Do you recall what it said?
It said that I was going to be a roommate, that it was $400 for the rent, that she had 3 cats, and 1 more would be great. And
no, just a second. That's not what the ad said.
Yes, it did. It said she had 3 cats and 1 more would be great.
Oh, that's what the ad said?
Yes.
It must be a very long ad. Where was it?
Craigslist.com.
.org. .org. Correction. Tell me what happened when you went and looked in the house.
It was 11 o'clock at night. She said that it was dirty, but she would clean it, and that the hot water in the sink was broken, the pipe, but she would fix it before I moved in, and the toilet that I was renting out with the bathroom was broken as well, but that would be fixed as well.
How many rooms did you look at?
3 different rooms, and this is the one that I chose.
This is the one that had a broken sink, a broken toilet, and was filthy. Is the one that you chose, Miss Rose?
Actually, it was the rent. It was cheaper than normal. Others were asking for $650, so I figured I was only going to be here till the summer. It should not be an issue.
Was the toilet fixed?
No, the toilet was never fixed, and neither was the hot water, which I had to eat out because I couldn't wash dishes. There were maggots in the sink. There were roaches, flies.
Who else lived in the house?
It was supposed to be just myself and Sheena, and she brought her crackhead mother in, who has no teeth and has tattoos everywhere, who she failed to mention was an ex-convict who had been in jail for 12 years for a violent crime. Not only that, but...
Just a second. When you moved in May 1st, was her mother there?
No, her mother was not there.
When did her mother move in?
Her mother started coming by in the middle of May and started hanging out, bringing her other crackhead friends who had no teeth.
I'm a dentist's daughter. Let's not talk about the teeth. Let's talk about the drugs.
Okay.
What makes you think that she was using crack?
Because I came home the night before I moved out, and her friend were smoking crack in the living room.
That would give me a clue.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your mother incarcerated for, Miss Michoud?
I believe it was theft, and she violated her parole several times.
She violated her parole because of her drug use?
No, it had to do with the fact that she wasn't seeing her probation officer like she was supposed to when she was released early.
Listen, if you're released early and you want to stay out of jail, unless you're involved with drugs, you usually see a probation officer.
Well, actually, the problem was that she moved back to Colorado without asking her probation officer, and she stayed out there for 3 years.
Well, that would be a problem.
Yes, obviously, as the rule was that she was supposed to keep in contact.
How long was she incarcerated?
I'm not sure. I never lived with my mom as a child, so.
When was she released from prison?
At least 5 years ago.
How come she started to come to your house?
Because I previously, before she had ever moved in, had paid my mom to come to my house to clean my apartment because I work 18-hour days. I have two different jobs. I work a bar job at night, and during the day I'm a special effects makeup artist. I work very hard, and I don't have time to spend, even if it is 4 hours that I get to sleep, to spend cleaning up my apartment.
You mean there's nobody else that could clean your apartment other than your mother?
Well, I don't trust anybody else to come into my apartment because I have many things that are worth a lot of money.
So what you're telling me is you trust your mother?
Yes, I do.
The mother who she says, and I believe her,
yes,
invited somebody into your home and they were smoking dope in your house.
Nobody else other than my mom was invited into my home.
Well, she did. Bring somebody else into your home.
I had never seen the person.
Well, I'm telling you, she did. She did, so your judgment wasn't very good. In choosing your mother, listen to me, your judgment wasn't very good in choosing your mother to clean your house.
I believe my judgment was just fine. Aside from the fact that she had been incarcerated before, it doesn't mean that she would do anything like that again.
Well, she brought somebody, listen to me, she brought somebody into your house and they were smoking dope in your house.
I'm glad you believe her, but I don't know that that's true. I know that my mom has not been on drugs for many years. I know that she does have permanent psychosis because of doing drugs for many years, and that is true. But she's not a current drug user, otherwise I wouldn't bring her into my house because I wouldn't trust her around my stuff personally.
Ms. Michoud, that's your problem. You want to have this unabiding faith in your mother with whom you say you never resided when you were growing up, who was incarcerated most of that time. That's up to you. I absolutely, 100% believe her when she says that she came home the day before she moved out and your mother was in the house smoking dope, which, as far as I'm concerned, gives her the right to leave in the middle of the month.
Well,
I'm speaking. What day of the month did you move out?
It was the 18th.
So you want prorated rent for the 12 days that you weren't there?
That's correct.
Okay, and how much does that come to?
$146.50.
My mother had not moved in at that point. She was a guest of mine.
Excuse me?
Shh. Listen to me. She doesn't. Listen to me very carefully, Miss Michoud. She doesn't. Listen. Try to listen. I know you got a lot going on in your hair and your face, everything else, but try to pay attention. She doesn't have to live in your house. You have invited a guest into your home, your mother, who was involved in behavior that I believe could have endangered someone else who was living in the house. If the police had come to your house and found your mother and someone else in possession of crack cocaine in your house, everyone in the house would have been involved in that drug sweep. So she was very smart to move out. And since you have acknowledged that you invited your mother into the house for the purposes of cleaning, you can't say she had no right to move. She did have a right to move. And since you invited this problem into your house, you have to compensate her for the 12 days in rent that she did not have use and enjoyment of her room.
Well,
that's my ruling. You may not like it. That's why
She failed
you
to
go
mention
to
that her boyfriend
that's
is a
why
speed addict,
I'm speaking.
and he's in
listen,
my and he's
listen
staying
to
in
me.
my house.
Listen to me very
For
carefully.
the whole time she was there.
Listen to me very carefully, madam. I don't know where else you work or what else you do to enhance your senses, but in my courtroom, I speak, I listen.
Obviously, you don't listen very well.
You know, I'm listening. You're not hearing what I'm saying because you don't like the answer. How much is your security?
$200. I have a copy of the sublease as well.
Can I see it, please?
And I have a copy of the letter she told me to vacate immediately.
Okay.
She wanted me to pay for her mother's rent for the next month.
Listen. Did you write this letter? There will be a $500 rent increase for your bedroom and private bathroom starting July 1st. Did you write this?
Yes, that's what
All right, good.
Hutchinson told me to do.
$146.50 and $200 for your security deposit. Do you have any pictures of the ruined rug that was allegedly caused by her cats?
No, but
Good. Now I would like to see what was written on the internet.
This is a networking site that my coworkers, my supervisors and boss, as well as my family and friends read. I was contacted by one of my coworkers.
Well, the one thing I do know for sure, Miss Michoud, is that you have a filthy mouth.
Thank you.
And I assume that you work in this town?
Yes, I do.
Good. I certainly hope that enough people, since we do have a reasonable audience in this town, watch this and know that I personally am offended that a woman would use the kind of vulgarities that you do written. I don't think, quite frankly, Miss Rose, that any fair-minded, reasonable person would accept anything that you wrote here as true.
Oh, of course not.
Because she clearly is a demented, sick girl. I don't know how she finds work in this town, but clearly there are a lot of demented, sick people who want demented, sick employees. That's the problem here sometimes. I can't judge that. Clearly, this is miserable. I'm not going to ask her how she's going to establish to my satisfaction that you committed the kinds of sex acts that she attributes to you, because certainly you don't want that, and I wouldn't, because it's really unseemly. Suffice, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
Am I going to speak at all this?
No, go speak outside. Somebody who wants to hear you. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $346.50. Thank you.
Toodles.
Nancy Savage is suing the mother of her grandson, Melissa Balding, for bail money. Nancy says Melissa and her son were arrested on drug charges.
All right, everybody listen very carefully, because this is a long saga to get to a simple question. Miss Savage, I assume this is your son.
Yes, it is.
This is his girlfriend.
Yes, it is.
Ex-girlfriend.
True.
They have a child together.
True.
She doesn't have custody of the child. He doesn't have custody of the child. One of your other children has custody of the child, because both of these two people were, in somebody's opinion, not capable of taking care of this child. According to your complaint, some time ago, your son was driving your car, with her in the car. When did that happen?
About a year ago, a little over a year ago.
Let's have a month.
April 30th, 2004.
He's not your only child, is he?
No.
Perfect. It's a perfect example of don't put all your eggs in one basket. When they got pulled over, there were drugs in the car.
Mm-hmm.
I assume, Miss Savage, that they didn't belong to you.
Right.
So the two of them got hauled into court and your car was impounded. According to you, you bailed out your son and Ms. Balding, and you want your bail money, which was how much?
$750.
You had to pay for the towing fees on the car and the impound fees.
The impound fees.
That she's not going to pay for, because the Hulk over here was the one driving your car, right?
Yes.
And you gave him permission to drive your car, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest you get the impound and towing fees back from him. By the way, have you paid your mother back for your bail?
Yes, I have. Except for $50 of it.
What about the towing fees?
No, I haven't.
Where were the drugs found?
They were found behind the glove box, stashed.
Whose drugs were they?
They were his drugs.
Had you used drugs that day?
No.
Were you under the influence of drugs that day? Were you under the influence of alcohol that day?
That was possible.
What?
Yes, ma'am.
What time of the day was this?
Around 12 o'clock in the afternoon, because I was laying out. out at my pool.
What time had you started drinking?
Around 12 o'clock.
He's shaking his head no. I tend to believe him. Were any charges ultimately brought against you?
Yes, ma'am.
For what?
That I'm not quite sure about them, but I have this paper right here stating that it was all dropped and dismissed.
Let me see that, please.
I have on the bail slip that I got her what her charges were.
Can I see that, please?
And she has one more charge than my son was, which I believe is being under the influence. She admitted to the police that she had taken somas.
What is that?
It's a muscle relaxer. Not that day, but previous.
Now tell me about the call you received, Miss Savage, from the defendant about the bail.
First of all, one of their friends notified me that their car had been pulled over, so I went to where it was because it was less than a mile from my house. And I asked the officer if I could get my car, and he said no, there were drugs involved, and one of them was under the influence, and so they were going to impound it. So I asked him where my grandchild was, and the officer went over and asked Melissa, and she told him it was at her apartment. So I told him I would take responsibility and go get Brian and have him stay with me.
Who was watching him?
Some of their friends.
Go ahead.
So I went and brought my grandson home, and I was trying to calm him and everything. He was very upset.
How old is he?
2.5.
Go ahead.
I told him that Mommy and Daddy were having car problems, and when their car was fixed, that they would come and get him, and he told me that I should take him to where they were. So Melissa started calling. The first call, she was like, you have to get me out of here. I can't stay in here. You need to get me out. I'll do anything. Whatever it is, I'll pay you back. Just get me out. And that was the first of one of many calls. I probably got between 15 and 20 calls that night, and every time she called, she woke my grandson up. And
what about your son?
He called me once.
Did you go and bail him out?
I bailed both of them out.
No. He called you once?
Once.
When did you bail him out?
Steve got released around 2 o'clock that afternoon, and Melissa got released 8:30, 9 o'clock that morning because there was a woman in jail that Melissa had identified for another crime.
Oh, just a second. This incident happened at 12 noon.
No, the incident happened at like 10 o'clock that night that they were pulled over.
Yes. Oh, so she had been drinking from 12 noon until 10 o'clock at night, according to her. Oh, I didn't understand that. Now I understand. Okay, and during that whole time, she called you numerous times.
She called me about 15 to 20 times, and she told me that they wanted to test her for drugs and she wasn't going to give them a urine sample, and that when she had to go to the bathroom that she would have the girls in the waiting cell stand around her so they didn't know that she was urinating.
Step up. What happened to your case?
My case was dropped before hers was.
What kind of drugs were found in the car?
Marijuana, pills, and methamphetamines.
Whose were they?
Hers.
Oh. That's interesting. Not yours.
The marijuana was mine. I admitted to the cop when we were stopped. He asked if there were any drugs in the vehicle, and the marijuana was in my pocket. And I handed that to him, and he found the other drugs when he asked for my license and registration. When she opened the glove box door, he saw a container that everything else was in.
Who are you?
Her mother.
Step up. Why do you think your daughter didn't call you to bail her out?
Because I taught her not to call me and bail any of my children out until they have gone to their first preliminary hearing.
She was in Ohio.
Just a second.
They'll possibly lower the
Just a
bail or
second.
drop the
What's your last
cases.
name?
Daly.
Miss Daly, how many children do you have that have been arrested?
Oh, this one.
So when you said you've taught all your children not to call you until after they have had their first bail hearing, you were really referring just to her?
No, I raised 4 daughters as a single parent.
Yes.
And I worked in law enforcement for 30 years.
Yes.
And I just informed them that if they got into a situation where they ended up in jail, I would hope this wouldn't happen, but I just wanted to make sure that they knew what to do.
How many years have you spent in law enforcement?
All told, 20.
Between us, we have more than a half a century in law enforcement, Miss Daly. How many children do you have?
4.
Between us, we have 9 children. Did you ever have a conversation and tell your children, if you ever get arrested, make sure you wait until your first bail hearing because your bail will probably be lowered? Do you remember having that conversation when you told them about, don't talk to strangers, don't go near people's vans? You ever remember having that conversation with your 4 children?
Negative.
Me neither. So you want to go through this one more time with me? Because unless you're kooky, because I never heard of a mother, even in law enforcement, sitting her children down and saying, listen, never talk to strangers, be home at midnight, don't give any strangers your phone number, and if you ever get arrested, I want you to wait until your first bail hearing before you call me, because your bail may be reduced. Were you happy to get out of jail?
Yes, ma'am.
Pay you the money. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $750. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Rebecca Thompson is suing the mother of her son's schoolmate, Miranda Peters, for medical bills. Rebecca says Miranda's boy broke her son's arm while roughhousing.
Your son? Yes, ma'am. Just next to you. Who was the basketball player? What's your first name?
Keith.
And yours?
Michael.
Your arm got broken in school.
Yes, ma'am.
Your arm got broken when he bumped into you.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what happened.
Well, I was trying to get into the game, and pretty much...
When did this happen?
March 17th of 04.
You were trying to get into what game?
In PE that day, it was pretty much a free day, and I was trying to get into the game, and they were pretty much just shoving me off.
Who was?
All the players. So I would steal the ball and run away with it, trying to be funny, and all the players would chase me.
So what I'm hearing is neither team wanted you to play that day, so you decided to play class clown and steal the ball and interrupt their game.
Yes, ma'am.
So what happened next?
Well, all the players pretty much chased me down and eventually got it from me, and while I was standing in the crowd, he gestured for the other players to clear a path to me, and when he did, he tossed the ball at me. And whenever I saw it was coming at me, I just tensed up and turned, and it hit me in my left hip.
Didn't hurt you?
No, ma'am.
And then what happened?
I just sort of walked up to him. Behind him was a gym mat, pretty thick and soft. So I wrapped my arms around him and purposely fell onto the gym mat. Everybody was laughing, and he did the same thing to me. And
you wrestled him, then he wrestled you to the ground, to the mat.
It was not an act of anger.
Okay. So you weren't angry with him?
No, ma'am.
And you don't think he was angry with you?
No, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened next?
Well, there was a rolled-up gym mat close to the compacted bleachers to the wall, and I got in between that, and just for the thrill of not being seen, and about 10 or 15 minutes.
I don't understand what that means. Just for the thrill of not being seen.
Just a childly...
No, well, what were you doing?
Nothing.
You mean you were hiding?
Yes, ma'am.
Who were you hiding from?
Nobody.
Keith.
Yes, ma'am.
So far, I'm getting a whole good story. I love this story so far. He wasn't angry with you, you weren't angry with him, but now you're hiding someplace and you're not hiding from anybody.
Well,
that doesn't sound like you could...
Well, I mean, me and my friend Anthony were both doing it, and he was behind another one to the right of me, and about...
What were you doing?
Just hiding.
Just hiding?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
And, well, I tried to get out, and I pulled... It was kind of tight in there, so I was trying to wheeze my way out, and I pulled my my left arm across my chest, and about that time I just felt the mat be shoved into me.
The mat being shoved into you by?
By Michael.
And that's how you broke your arm?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Michael, what happened?
I rammed the mat. I wasn't intentionally trying to break his arm. I was just horseplaying with him like we were earlier. And
so you were horseplaying?
Yeah.
You knew he was there?
Yes, ma'am.
You knew he was there?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Miss Peters, your defense to this says, let me read it so that I make sure I get your language clear. I told her that with children, and particularly with boys, these things happen.
Yes, Your Honor.
Explain that to me.
The reason I said that boys will be boys and that it wasn't my responsibility to pay for the bills was because it was an accident. He didn't mean to do it.
It wasn't an accident, Ms. Peters. That's your problem, you see. If your son was playing a game and during the course of the game he ran into this structure, not intending to come into contact with Keith at all, but it was during the course of a game and he was at a place where he could get hurt, that's an accident. But that's not what your son told me. Your son told me he saw him there and he was just fooling around with him and rammed him. Unfortunately, when he rammed him, his arm was in such a position that it broke. Okay. So his action, not in breaking his arm, I don't think he intended to break his arm, of course not. But he intended to hit him. And for that, he is responsible. Just as if his leg, when he tackled him to the mat, horseplay. But when young people are involved in horseplay, and if you had broken his leg, who would have been responsible?
I would have.
You're right. What were your medical expenses?
Before or after insurance?
After insurance.
After insurance, the total was $706.07.
I'm not saying that your son bears any responsibility with regard to this incident, but I believe he has to know that when 10 people are playing basketball, you're not supposed to act like a jerk, right?
Yes, ma'am. We've already established that.
Good. You know, Michael, sometimes when you do the wrong thing, things happen. There are consequences, even those that you don't anticipate. You got to start being a two-process thinker and say, listen, if I do this, this could happen. It's not worth it. Being a fool is not worth it. Being a fool isn't worth it. How long was your arm in a cast?
6 weeks.
And this happened in March, so it was during school.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't even get to relax. When did you get the cast off?
I'm not sure.
End of April.
So you got a chance to enjoy the summer.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. You still friends?
I think so.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Judgment for the plaintiff in amount of $706.
Landlord Suzanne Brown says plumber Anthony Chance harassed her and her tenants after she refused his professional services.
Miss Brown, you own a building.
Yes, I do.
And one of your buildings had a leak. According to your complaint, you looked in the yellow pages and you found a plumber, the defendant, and asked him to go over and take a look and see what the problem was. So far, is that about right?
That's right.
He went over there and he called you and he told you what he thought the problem was and what it would take to fix it.
That's correct.
You paid him for his service call. You eventually found somebody else to fix the problem, paid him less money. And it is your claim that because Mr. Chance was angry that he didn't get the job, he harassed you in a vindictive way by going over and frightening your tenants, telling them that things were dangerous as a result of the shoddy workmanship that was being done in their building. Now, when did you have a leak in your building?
That was July 17th.
Who had a leak in their apartment?
Terry James.
Step up. Ms. James, tell me what happened in your apartment on the 17th of July.
I had a leak by the bedroom window.
Near the bedroom window?
Yeah, down by the floor, by the baseboard.
Had it been raining that day?
Nope, but the lawn man had watered and watered and watered, and he had forgot to leave the water on.
So it was clear water that was coming through?
Yes.
And you called the landlord?
Yes.
All right, is that what brought you to the apartment, Mr. Chance?
No, it's not.
Well, what brought you to the apartment, sir?
Well, Suzanne Brown gave us a call on the 17th, and we went out to the property and did an inspection of the property. When we entered the tenant's unit, we found that the tub was full of sewage. There was about...
That's a lie, Your Honor.
Shh, just a second. The bathtub?
The bathtub
was full of sewage?
Was full of sewage.
Is that right?
No, not full of sewage.
Is that right?
That's a lie. That's a lie. There was no sewage in the tub at all. He wasn't even the man that came out. The man that came out, he ain't even here, I guess.
Really?
The man that came out walked around the house, went around to the front, got on the phone and called this man.
Did he come at that point?
No, he didn't. He never showed up. He showed
Not
up.
that day?
No.
Is that right, sir?
I was there on the 17th of July. I did not go in her unit. But
Just a minute. So you didn't go into her unit?
I did not.
So you didn't see anything in her unit on the 17th of July?
I saw sewage all around the perimeter of the outside of the building.
You did not go into her unit on the 17th?
I did not.
Good. Do you have a copy of the receipt that you got?
Yes, I do.
His company?
He sent that to me.
Okay. They say that in the front unit, they have water standing in the tub. Someone has inserted the word sewer water standing in the tub in this. This is the way you received it?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, when did you call somebody else? On what date?
I had actually called, there's a plumber that I always use. I had actually called him. The problem was that when I found out about the leak, it was a Sunday, and he wasn't available, and I wasn't sure how big it was, and I wanted to fix the issue.
Is this your regular plumber?
Yes.
Sit down. Step up, sir. Tell me your name.
My name's Mike Howard.
How long have you been working for the plaintiff?
Oh, probably since about '02.
You familiar with this unit?
Yes.
When did you go out to the unit?
The day after, the Monday.
Tell me what you found when you went out there on the 18th of July.
The water from the sprinklers had went over the foundation.
Your Honor.
Where had it entered the home?
It had came up over the foundation and ran into the area that was wet.
Carpeting wet?
Yes.
Around the baseboards?
Yes.
Did you find anything else wrong with the house?
The bathtub had about, I'd say about 1.5 inches of water in it that just wouldn't drain.
So the water that was standing in the tub was water that had been standing there because of a clogged drain?
Correct.
What did you use to clean out the drain?
Snake.
How much did you charge the plaintiff to do the whole job?
$2,500.
What did you charge her the $2,500 for?
We dug a place approximately 2 foot wide around the perimeter of the home. It was 90 foot long, and we poured concrete in there.
And what was that supposed to do?
It stopped the water from entering the home at the foundation.
You mean from the sprinkler system?
It was just a hose, but yeah.
What was the estimate that the defendant gave you to fix the problem?
The defendant told me it would be $45,000 for him to come in and dig out the entire concrete floor, and that my tenants would have to evacuate the premises. And the problem was that nobody had actually done any tests. The defendant never actually did any tests. All they did was walk the perimeter of the property. And actually, he didn't even do that. He had someone else do that. And came to the conclusion that it would be $45,000, that I needed to call my insurance company and make sure that I had him there, because the insurance company might not believe me, and that all three of us could meet and he could convince them that this is what needed to be done and get them to pay for it.
Now, after you decided not to hire him and you decided to hire Mr. Howard?
Correct.
Tell me what you claim he did to harass you and your tenants.
Well, on that Monday, when he had gone out and he had started working on it, when I came back that night, I had received numerous calls from Terry James, and I had 2 messages from Tony Chance. The first one said, I tried to run your credit card for the $69 service charge, and either you gave me the wrong number or I wrote it down wrong, and you really need to give me a call as soon as possible, otherwise we're going to have problems. The second message I got said that, I still haven't heard from you. You must be avoiding me. And by the way, I happened to go out to the property today, and I saw that you had some repairs going on there, and I just want to let you know that that was a really bad move on your part, and that now I'm going to have to contact the Sacramento Housing Authority and let them know what's going on over there. I'm going to put a full written report together to turn you in. And so to me, it was obviously, he was vindictive. I couldn't believe the message that I got. I was completely freaked out, and Terry said that he had been by there.
Don't.
Okay.
Step up. You could sit down. Did Mr. Chance come back to the house?
Yes, he came back on Monday.
He spoke to you?
Yes, he did.
What did he say to you?
Oh, my God. What is this? You mean to tell me they put concrete around the house? The sewage problem is not done. The pipes is busted. You guys are going to die. You guys need to get out right now. You guys should vacate the place. You guys mean to tell me you're not out of there? And then he came back on Tuesday and scared my son. Had my son all upset. Talking about we should have been out of there. We going to die. We go to sleep. We going to die. We should have been moved out of there.
Okay. Since July 18th or 19th, have you had any other problems in your home?
No, I haven't.
Any other water?
Nothing's wrong.
Are you friendly with the other tenants?
Yes, I am. Very friendly.
Anybody else have any water problems that you know of?
Nobody has any problems on the property.
I guess you were wrong.
I don't think so, Your Honor.
I guess you were wrong. Did you write a report to any housing authority with regard to what you found?
No, I did not.
Ms. Brown says that that's what you threatened to do. Is that what you threatened to do, Mr. Chance?
I never threatened to do anything.
Did you indicate that that's what you were going to do?
No, I did not.
What did you say?
I said specifically that I had already called the health department due to the fact that there was still a dangerous issue out at her property.
When had you called the health department?
I called them Monday night when I drove by the property and saw that concrete had been poured over the top of the sewage on the outside of the building.
Mr. Chance, but you were wrong, sir, because we've had 5 months since you were there. And no problem.
They've taken care of the symptoms, but the problem still exists. And the problem with the property that they have there is the drains underneath the footing were leaking substantially and had been that way for a long time.
What tests did you do, specifically, what tests did you do on the 17th when you were there to test that?
I've got phone records with me showing that I was on my phone with my service tech who was on the job.
What tests did you do? Not your technician. If you call the health department, I would say that you don't rely on a technician. You go out there yourself before you make the call.
I did.
The very next day. So I'm asking you, what tests did you personally do? Make sure you give me an answer that I'm going to be comfortable with, Mr. Chance.
I personally didn't do any tests.
That's what I thought. Now, did you ever give Miss Brown a quote of $45,000 to fix the problem?
No, I did not, Your Honor.
Did you ever say to Miss Brown that she should contact her insurance company?
I may have mentioned that, yes.
And that you should be there when the insurance company adjuster comes to look at the problem?
I advised her that that would be a good idea.
And are you telling me that you didn't give her a ballpark figure about what the problem would cost to rectify?
No, I didn't, Your Honor. I told her we needed to do tests to determine where the problem was at.
Oh, so if you're telling her you needed to do tests to determine where the problem was, why did you call the health department?
Well, we knew that there was a problem. We didn't know which bathroom was leaking or where the problem was at underneath the slab because the whole area underneath the house was saturated with sewage.
What made you think, sir, that the whole area under the house was saturated with sewage?
Because my technician went into the other unit, the back unit, and ran a sink for 20 minutes, and the water proceeded to come up in the carpets in the front bedroom of the front unit, which indicates a backed up sewer main.
And you think that that just happened once, sir?
I went by the job on Sunday night.
Yeah?
Because Suzanne had agreed to meet me there Sunday night.
Yeah?
And I was sitting in front of the property. I did not go in either of the units, but I saw the sewage around the perimeter of the building. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes, and then Suzanne called me and said, "I'm sorry, but something's come up. I can't meet you. I'll have to do it on Monday." So I left the property, but at that point, I was able to witness the wet sewage all the way around the outside footing, and it definitely was.
What made you think it was wet sewage, sir?
Based on the description that my technician gave me while he was in the home.
Mr. Chance, you want to know what I think, sir?
What?
I'm going to tell you what I think. I think that you were really annoyed with Miss Brown because she decided not to use you to fix this major problem and did you out of a really expensive job. Because he came out and said he ran a snake in the tub, the water went down, and she's had no more problems. 5 months later, your technician, Zippo, nothing, left the standing water in the bathtub and did nothing. What you did was you decided this was a big job. The entire foundation of this house had to be ripped up. Call your insurance company and let them know. All has to be redone. And then somebody else came and did it, and you were annoyed. And you didn't call the health department until after you were advised that she had gotten somebody else to fix what she perceived to be the problem or what she was told by a professional was the problem. That's vindictive, sir. What else?
I actually ended up filing a police report against him because I became scared. It's like he turned into this psycho plumber. And
he was just annoyed. It was a $45,000 job that went out the window because you got somebody with a snake to fix the problem.
Judy, I have some evidence.
My friends call me by my first name. Now, what I don't understand, Mr. Chance, is I absolutely believe Mr. Howard when he says he went to the premises the next day, took a snake, put it in the bathtub, snaked out the bathtub, the water went down, and I absolutely believe Miss Jones when she says she has not had a problem since. What I don't understand is how come your technician went into the house, saw standing water, and didn't take a snake to try to get it to go down, yet went into another unit, a unit that they had not called to complain about, let the water run in that unit to come up with the story, instead of doing the first thing that I would do as a plumber and say, gee, I see this standing water. Let me see if I can get it to go down. Do you understand what I'm saying to you, Mr. Chance?
I understand.
Very good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,500. That's all. You did the wrong thing. It's going to cost you.
Your Honor.
Parties are excused.
Elizabeth Sperry says her ex-husband's girlfriend, Wendy Shively, had her falsely arrested for stalking. Wendy says she had no other choice.
Miss Sperry, the defendant is your former husband's current girlfriend.
That's correct.
This is the former husband.
That's also correct.
How long were you married?
10 years.
You have 3 children.
Correct.
And am I correct that your husband has primary physical custody of the children?
That is correct.
As of when?
Actually, since from the time we separated, because of the fact I left the marriage. 4 years.
And you see the children how often?
Every Monday and Tuesday after school, every other weekend.
How far do you live from your former husband?
54 miles.
And who do you live with?
I live with my husband.
And you've been married for how long?
9 months now.
Your claim is that Miss Shively had you falsely arrested for stalking.
That is correct, yes.
And you want to be compensated. And Miss Shively says that she feared for her safety because of your behavior, and she had every right to have you arrested. So I'm coming to you, Ms. Shively. Tell me what caused you to file the complaint, and I would like to read the complaint and see the police report that was generated by you.
There's some other documents.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. On May 19th, Miss Sperry, that was the first contact I had with her, and it wasn't really contact. I noticed her following us. We were picking up some leaves. A neighbor had cut his trees down so we could see to drive around the corner. So we were out putting those into the truck to take them to the dump, and Miss Sperry kept driving back and forth. This was on a Thursday. It was not her day with the kids.
May 19th.
May 19th.
Right.
On May 19th, 10 a.m., I left my home to go to a doctor's appointment at where I have been going to the doctor for about the past 10 years. I arrived at 10 minutes after 11, saw the doctor, got the prescription filled, drove down 2 main roads in the neighborhood to go to the back side of it, where it's a large neighborhood, but it's got very main roads that people use all the time. To go to the back side, to go to the Wendy's drive-thru, get a grilled chicken sandwich, and go to work. At that time, I was in sales, and I worked in the immediate area.
Did you drive by their home on May 19th?
No.
Yes, you did.
When I got to the back of the neighborhood at a traffic light, I noticed a burgundy van in front of me. It's windowless. And I looked, and he's got plates that say on them. I thought, oh, crap, I'm right behind Jeff. I couldn't see in that van. There is not a single window on it.
Just a second. So what you're saying is you live about an hour away, and on May 19th, you were in the vicinity of their home. Okay, next.
But she had driven by 6 times before she was behind us in the burgundy van.
I got it. Go
Okay.
ahead. Keep going. What's
Okay.
next?
There were several other incidences. There was a June 7th incident. I had been taking her daughter, Allison, who's 11, to my tanning salon, not to tan, but she has some scars on her legs, and there's a spray type of tan you can use, and it covered them a little, so she was a little more confident. I never asked Beth. Jeff had given me permission to take her there, and Beth had gone into the salon, raised a scene. When I went in the next time, the ladies told me about it. I felt terrible, that I felt like I stepped on her toes, so I called her. And I said, listen, we need to talk. I didn't mean to do anything against you. I was just trying to help Allison, and is there a way we can do this together? And we met in a parking lot. I gave her my cell phone number at that time because her and her ex-husband don't get along at all, thinking that perhaps I could keep them from fighting in front of the kids, arguing back and forth, because I care about the kids. Started out, she would call asking for little things like to help with the kids, and that was fine, but then it turned into bash Jeff sessions. How bad he is, how he's going to beat me in 2 years, how he's charming at first, but he beats women, and I didn't want to listen to that anymore. And I told her to stop contacting me. There became an incident.
Okay. Now let's go back to the incidents at the tanning salon. What happened at the tanning salon?
On the weekend prior to June 7th, my daughter happened to mention that she'd gone to the tanning salon with Wendy. And I said, oh, and I knew she was self-conscious of the scars. I understood completely. But I didn't really know who signed the paper. And in my mind, I didn't mind that she went. It wasn't a problem. So I did go by the tanning salon. I said,
why?
Just to see who signed the paper. I was just curious. It did have her signature. And I said, you know, she's really not her parent or guardian. She really shouldn't have signed that. So I signed one. I filled out consent forms for both of my daughters. I didn't object. I thought it was very nice that their father had met somebody finally after 3.5 years, and the girl spoke very nicely about Ms. Shiley. I was thrilled that, you know, they had somebody to enjoy their time with as well.
That's very nice, but then I don't understand why you were curious to see who had signed the consent form.
Because...
Then I don't understand why you were curious enough to make a trip to the tanning salon to see who had signed the consent form, if it was a good thing, if their father has primary physical custody of the children, so certainly he can consent.
Oh, certainly.
And he can delegate someone else to consent. So I don't see, despite the fact that what you're saying now is all peaches and cream and all light and fluff, why you would go to the tanning salon and say, no, I'm going to sign a consent form.
I just, as a parent, just offered it because, again, I didn't want it to come back. But at the same time, I did.
It was stupid.
Yeah, it was. And again, I was only, I was on my way to pick up my children.
You were tweaked. You were tweaked and peaked. Did your husband receive custody of these children with your consent, or was it a court order?
No, it was with consent because he is the only one who lived in the school district. I lived 3 miles away, and we did not want them to be moved. So no, back in May of '03, we consented that he would have primary physical for school enrollment purposes.
So when you moved an hour away, you made no request and move with you?
No, I have not. Not at this point. I have.
Stand up a second. I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Mr. Corey, am I correct that there has been no request by your former wife to change the custody arrangement?
She's tried in a roundabout way of doing it.
How?
Before Father's Day this year, that's one of the things that Wendy had a problem with her. She basically filled out some...
Okay, then let Wendy tell me. Why don't you sit down? What happened on Father's Day?
She showed up prior to Father's Day at my apartment. She called me and told me she had just dropped off her kids. I never gave her my address, mind you. She had just dropped off her kids.
How did you get her address?
I did not have her address. I just knew that she lived in an apartment complex on the back side of the neighborhood.
How did you know that?
My children talked to me, and the only thing is they said, Wendy lives where Dad used to live. And I said, where? And they said, the apartments. And I said, oh. He had moved out to the apartment complex 4 years prior, and that's all I knew.
When she called and said she was coming over to bring something, I said, okay, I'll meet you. I didn't want her in my apartment because I was there by myself. So I asked her to meet me in front of the leasing office, well-lit public place. She supposedly had some document that changed the whole custody agreement between the two of them to a 50-50 arrangement. But she didn't give me that document. That's what she was bringing for me to take to Jeff to try to convince him to sign.
You have a copy of that document?
She does.
I have it here. This is the
please?
actual printed copy, and I wasn't trying to change anything. The only thing I was interested in doing was starting the weekend of Father's Day, which happened to fall on my weekend. He could actually have the children that weekend, and we would alternate from there.
What's the support order in this case?
The child support order from May 2003. That's never been.
In what amount?
$473 a month.
Are you paying that?
It's not for me to pay, it's for him to pay me. Back when we separated, when we had 50-50, he made 3 times the money I made. So for a year and a half, when we had...
Just a second, I'm talking about right now.
Right now, there is no order in place for me to pay him. Since I have the children half of the week, and then on the weekends...
You don't have the children half the week. You don't have the children half the week.
I carry their health insurance, and again, he makes 3 times the money I make. So
I don't care.
There has not been a change with regard to that.
Well, there should be, sir.
I know there should.
Okay. Well, what is the September 2000, October 2004 order with regard to visitation?
I have those.
Well, I want to see it because that's what the court's affirming.
Yeah, we basically went to court 5 times.
I want to see the last order. Do you have it, sir?
No, I don't, but I think I could shed some light on this for you.
Please, stand up, because that's what I want to see. This last order here merely says that the order of October 22nd is modified to provide for overnight visitation, alternate weekends, Friday to Sunday. What you gave to her contains 7 things, including holidays, major parts of the summer, etc. Now, you want to shed light? I'm more than happy to hear you.
This is what happened. We basically had 50-50 custody with our kids. In our original paperwork, I put that if she moved more than 30 miles away from where we both lived, which I knew she was going to be moving out to the Fredericksburg, Culpeper area. She's had the same boyfriend even while she was still living in my house. That's kind of what happened here. She moved out there without telling me a word. When I found out, I went back to court. They basically said, the girls can't live out there with you. I ended up getting custody of my kids full time. And basically what she has now is she'll pick them up from me, drive them around in circles till she brings them back at 7 o'clock at night. It's a total fiasco. My kids are getting dropped off who knows where, and she doesn't even spend the time she has with them. That's a serious problem. They are 12, 11, and 7. My daughters are preteen, and they think they're going on 20. It's a problem. Their problem with me is I have rules. When they're with their mother, nobody's around to see if they're weighing the rules or not. You know, best thing that ever happened to me and my daughters, and I just think she's jealous. All I want is to be left alone. I never wanted child support from her.
Okay,
and
well,
I
you
can't
be
even
left
do that.
alone, sir, because you picked this lady to be the mother of your children.
I understand
and she's
that.
going to be the mother of your children forever.
But should I be penalized for being stupid at 24?
Well,
For the rest of my life?
Listen, should your children be penalized?
Absolutely not.
That's what I'm saying to you, sir. They have a mother. And for better or worse, they have 2 parents. It's not a good thing for them not to feel loved and supported by both parents. Now, children, in situations like this where you live far away from each other and have to live with one parent or another, they're living with you. That's great.
Doing it.
That's great. And I can understand her perspective of she would like to have her children with her. She made her choices 4 years ago, and unfortunately, now she would like to have her choice, and the children too. That's not going to happen. Do you understand that?
Oh, I understand.
Good. You can't have your choice, your heart, and your children. You left. That's it. That doesn't mean that she's going to leave you alone. She's not going to leave you alone, because that's what happens. She's not smart enough to leave you alone. She's not smart enough to say, this is it, this is the story, and she will continue to fight you for your children. Children will get older. You'll make a rule for your 15-year-old. You won't like a boyfriend. She'll say, I'm going to mommy. Get over it. It's going to happen. That's what happens when people get divorced. Now you can sit down. Now, tell me the rest of the stalking, madam, so that I can make a judgment with regard to this case.
Okay.
And move on.
The following at the tanning salon, the following me in the car, there were, all the instances are listed there. I don't remember them all now. Factored in with, I was afraid all the time because she didn't represent herself as a stable, sane person to me. And I don't mean to be mean, but that's what it was. So I was
Give me an
afraid.
example.
Trying to sneak over that custody agreement, she showed up with the custody agreement and then wouldn't even give it to me. She asked for my email, saying it wasn't dark enough for me to read. Could she email it? She was trying to gather more information. I handed her over my email address, though, thinking, great, it'll stop the phone calls, and she won't be bashing her husband. She'll be sending me email. But I'm afraid of her. The final straw was Father's Day when I picked her children up Father's Day evening at McDonald's. Was afraid they would get into it because it was a bad day for everybody. Picked him up. She came storming over to my car, yelling, give me Taylor's cell phone. His daughter had a cell phone, which her father took away because she was using it to deceive and lie to him. He gave Beth plenty of warning that he would take it away if he ever saw it again. She told her to sneak it in the house in her backpack and keep it on vibrate so her dad didn't know. So she was storming over at me, got right in my face. I rolled up my window and drove away, but I was very afraid of her at that time, and that's what precipitated the police report.
Anything else you want to tell me?
I would like to tell my side of the story because this is just totally made up. I did meet Ms. Shively for the first time on June 7th. She did call, asked if we could talk, indicated she didn't want to have any problems. I agreed. Talked for about 20 minutes, offered me her cell phone number. It was very nice. So I left and got the girls, and my daughter saw her at the pool standing at the fence with her son, so they walked over to say hi. I took a glass of water to want a cup, and Mr. Corey pulled up and said, make a new friend. I'd pass on that, and I left with my middle daughter. 5 minutes later, he called me and left me a very nasty email saying she sees right through you, that sort of scenario. Just basically saying, while I have my children with me, I'm stalking her.
Your children aren't with you when you have them.
On 5:30, I picked up the girls on 5:29.
Tell me about the incident with the cell phone.
With regard to the cell phone, I had given my daughter a cell phone back in October. I showed up to get her. Evening, I got a very nasty email from him telling me that he doesn't want me to come by anymore to get the girls to meet him at McDonald's. That's fine. At 6 p.m., I showed up at McDonald's. Ms. Shively was there to get the children. I got out of the vehicle with my daughters, walked to her car, and I said, did you bring the cell phone with me? I had left a message on Friday at his house saying, I'd like to get my cell phone back. Did this in front of 3 people. It was not nasty. She said, no, I don't have it. And I said, well, can you go get it? And she said, no, he says he'll give it to you when you go to court. And I said, what does assault and my cell phone have to do with each other? She said, I don't know, don't put me in the middle. And I said, fine. And I walked away, got in my car, I drove to the police station, which was a couple miles away, and I told the officer, he's got my property. I've been going through this kind of abuse for 4 years. I want my cell phone back.
Where were your girls when you went to the police station?
They had just left with Ms. Shively, so I went by myself.
So you dropped the children off and you went to the police station?
Correct, because I did want my property returned to me. He had no right to confiscate it.
Just a second. You had no property.
I had a cell.
No, dear. You gave the cell phone to your daughter. Listen to me. That's a gift.
Okay.
It's not your property.
Okay.
Okay. So let me tell you, I have to make a judgment as to whether or not your actions, just listen, whether your actions were sufficient to cause her to feel fearful enough to seek a protective order. And I'm going to refer to two objective things that you did, because I don't know, I wasn't there. I couldn't tell, based upon what either one of you tell me, whether or not you were making calls to her and saying bad things about him. I can't tell whether or not you were, in fact, driving back and forth. There's no videotape of you driving back and forth, but you did two things that suggest to me that you're more angry than you seem. I'm speaking. That you're more angry than you would seem to want to convey to me. One, For no apparent reason, you went to the tanning salon because you were curious about who signed the consent. There was no reason for you to be curious. Your former husband has physical custody of these children. He can do whatever he wants to do. I assume it was in the children's best interest. As a matter of fact, you agree that it was in the children's best interest, but your nose was tweaked as to who signed the consent. And not only did you go there, but once you saw that she had signed the consent, you said to them, she's not their mother, I'm their mother, give me the forms, I will sign the consent, because that's what objectively you did. The second thing you objectively did was, after you dropped the children off in June, with regard to this cell phone, instead of just saying, listen, I'm not going to get myself exercised over this cell phone, I'm going to the police. The police? Over a cell phone? And you knew why he had taken the cell phone away from her. He took the cell phone away from her because she wasn't doing the right thing. Miss Shively probably had good cause to file a complaint against you. In any event, your complaint for false arrest is dismissed. Case is dismissed. That's all.
Ladies are excused. You may step out.
Susan and Lloyd Weaver say the father of their daughter's former best friend, Mark Cooley, owes for a Hawaiian vacation.
Oh, my goodness. Do you really want to be here?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Weaver, this is your complaint. Your daughter and the defendant's daughter are friends, and you were taking a trip to Hawaii. According to your complaint, you invited Mr. Cooley's daughter to accompany your family on the trip. And the arrangement was that if she were going to go with you, her mother and father, who are divorced, were going to split the cost of her basic trip.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that right?
That's correct.
And it is your claim that Mr. Cooley, who is her father, did not pay for his half of her trip.
Yes.
Mr. Cooley said that he never had a contract with you, right?
That's correct.
That he was sort of presented with a fait accompli, that he fell on some hard financial times, otherwise he certainly would have wanted his daughter to have this. By the way, she did go with you. His defense is that he never had a contract with you. When were you planning this trip?
February of 2004 is when we first contacted them about planning the trip.
When you say them, who did you contact?
I contacted Brittany's mother because Brittany lives with her mom, and we discussed the option of her being able to go with us.
And what was the arrangement that you made with her mother?
I told her mother that we'd be happy for Brittany to accompany us because she was our daughter's best friend, and that if she would pay for just the airline flight and then the expenses of the activities such as the snorkeling and et cetera that we did there, okay, and that we would be glad to pay for all of her food and then any of the other miscellaneous expenses. And then her mother said that she would have to contact Brittany's father to see if he'd pay for half and let us know. Then she called us and said that she'd spoke with her ex-husband, and he agreed.
Did you speak with him?
We spoke with him 30 days before the trip. He came over to our house. Not that date, not that time.
When did you go on the trip?
December.
So practically a year later.
Correct.
And it wasn't until November that you say that you contacted Mr. Cooley. Is that right?
Yes, because we were unable to get a hold of him.
Had you purchased the tickets already?
Yes, ma'am.
So you purchased the non-refundable tickets based upon the conversation you had with Brittany's mother.
Correct.
Now, you understand that up until this time you had no contract with Mr. Cooley. Do you understand that?
No, ma'am.
Well, I'm going to try to explain it to you.
Okay.
What you did was you had, at best, a contract with Brittany's mother to pay for half the cost of the trip. Brittany's mother cannot obligate Brittany's father to pay for the other half. She can't say he's going to pay for the other half and in any way obligate him. Do you have a sibling?
Yes, ma'am.
Brother or sister?
I have 2 sisters and a brother.
Okay, let's take the brother. He's easy. What's his name?
Michael.
All right, let's say Michael wanted to have his family room redone. So he went to a contractor, and the contractor said it's going to cost $10,000 to redo your family room. And Michael said, that's fine. I'm going to pay for half, and my sister promised me that she would pay for the other half as a birthday present. So you go ahead and you do this renovation for $10,000. Michael gives him $5,000, and he says, go get the other $5,000 from my sister. What's your first name?
Susan.
Susan. Goes to Susan. Susan says, listen, I told him if I could, one day I would like to make a present of $5,000, but I never agreed to pay you $5,000. I I didn't have a contract with you. You want your money, go to Michael. Now do you understand?
I understand that, ma'am, yes.
He may have agreed to something, but up until November, I just want you to understand you had no contract with him.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank
Got
you.
it?
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me what happened in November.
Well, my husband spoke with him. I don't know if you want to talk to him as far as
I sure
that.
do.
Okay.
He's the only one I can speak to if he spoke to him.
I talked to Mr. Cooley about the expenses that we had occurred already, purchasing the non-refundable tickets, and that she would need $300 to $400 to pay for the incidental expenses that she would occur as far as the snorkeling, the luau, and that kind of stuff that she would need over there. And he agreed at that time that...
What did he say? Not he agreed. What did he say?
He said the trip sounded good, that it was a one-in-a-lifetime trip for her, that it was something that they had never, ever planned for her to do, and that he would pay his half.
He said he would pay his half.
His half.
And are those the words he used?
To the best of my recollection, yes, Your Honor.
Did he give you any money?
No, ma'am.
So when was he supposed to pay you?
He indicated that he had had some problems health-wise, and at the time he was unable to give us any money. And we told him when he got back on his feet, whenever he could pay us monthly payments or whatever have you. But basically, he had us over a break, Brittany. We weren't going to disappoint her and not take her.
Now it's your turn.
Well, first of all, I didn't go to their house at all. My conversation with Mr. Weaver was over the phone, and that was only because in August I went on disability, and I was informing him that I was not going to be able to pay, and he had said, quote unquote, well, give me what you can, and if you can't give me anything, then that's fine, your daughter's going to go anyway. So I mentioned to my daughter that I wasn't going to be able to pay for her trip, and she was going to have to ask her mother to pay for it in its entirety.
Okay. Something that you said to me, Mr. Cooley, however, has an interesting ring to it. You said that you called the Weavers because your financial circumstances changed. You wanted to let them know that you could no longer pay your half. Is that right?
That's true.
Well, that suggests to me, sir, that you had originally told your ex-wife that you would pay for half when she originally called you in February of 2004. Are you following what I'm saying to you? Am I correct, Mr. Cooley, that you originally told your ex-wife that you would pay for half of the expenses?
That is correct. But in February of 2004, I was under the impression that I was only going to help her out on her airfare.
Fine. Let's say that's what you were told, that you were going to pay for half the airfare. Not help her out, half, because the words that you used to me were half, right?
Right.
Now, the airfare was how much?
The exact price was $729.43.
So is what you're telling me now, Mr. Cooley, that what your understanding was that you were going to pay for half the airfare, and that's what you agreed to with your former wife? Don't think of what I'm going to say after that, Mr. Cooley. Believe me, you're never going to be able to leapfrog over my mind. Now, is that what you agreed to with your former wife, to pay for half the airfare?
Right. Well, to be honest with you, my correspondence, don't speak, has been through my daughter.
Is that what you promised your daughter?
Correct.
And your daughter, I assume, conveyed that to her mother?
Yeah.
Brittany, what did you tell your mother?
Well, I told my mom that I was going on the trip and how much it was.
How much did you tell her it was?
I told her that as far as what I knew, it was $350 that she was supposed to pay.
And you told your father the same thing?
That he was supposed to pay $350 also.
And he agreed to that?
Yes.
Good. Now you can sit down. Okay, Mr. Cooley, let us assume everything that you say is correct, that you were going to pay for half the airfare. Why didn't you pay him?
Well, in August, I went on disability, and so my whole financial situation changed.
You already said that to me. But at this point, they had non-refundable tickets, and one way or another, your daughter was going to go. Did you ever think, sir, of saying, I have to send the Weavers $50 a month because I agreed to do that? They took my daughter on a trip. I had a contract with them to pay them half, according to you. Not according to them, but according to you, half the airfare for your daughter.
When I gave them the $150, there was somewhat of an agreement that I could pay monthly.
When did you give them $150?
I gave them $150 upon them coming back from the trip.
Give me the date. You have the date?
It was January 6th, Your Honor.
And you cashed that check?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. So that's January, February, March, April, May, June, July, 6 months later. And you haven't given them any money since?
Well, in April, the tides had turned because they kind of sent me a threatening letter, or at least I thought it was threatening, informing me that we don't want any ill feelings toward you or your wife. This could affect our daughter and your daughter's friendship.
They're absolutely right. It's a very good reason for you to send a check and say, I'm sorry, I told you that finances were really tight. I realize that this is my obligation. Here's $50. Here's $30. Here is something to demonstrate that I recognize that this is my obligation. You have a letter like that?
No, I don't, Your Honor.
Well, that's the wrong thing. You did the wrong thing, sir. Mr. and Mrs. Weaver, the only contract that I can ascribe to Mr. Cooley is for half of the airfare. And I say that because that's what his daughter says that she told her mother, and she told him. So, unfortunately, what?
We sent Mr. Cooley 3 letters advising him that he still owed us money. He sent us a letter back. And in that letter, he said that it's not verbatim.
Show me the letter.
You got it, ma'am.
If what you're saying to me is he acknowledges anything more than
Yes,
the
Your Honor,
airfare.
The letter's several pages long, Your Honor. The first page shows that he agreed to pay half.
Well, let
but
me
it just
see.
says to pay half of Brittany's expenses. The whole letter.
Uh-huh.
And, Your Honor, if I may just say one more thing. Brittany's mom paid us the $550.
I don't care what
she
she
owed
did.
us, so she knew that half of it was $550.
Listen
if
to
I just
me.
might say that.
You cannot ascribe anything to him that Brittany's mother knew.
Okay, I won't say anything else
Nothing.
about that.
If you want to have a contract with somebody, you have to talk to them face to face, or you have to speak to them personally over the phone, and then memorialize it in a written document that is signed. Then it's a contract that you have between 2 people. If you're dealing with children, she could just as easily go to her father and say, listen, I want to be able to go on this trip. It's $200 to go. Will you pay for $200? And he says, sure, I'll pay for $200. And it turns out that it's $2,000. You've already booked the ticket, so you're out $2,000. What am I going to do, put her in jail? Of course not. That's why you don't deal with children when you're making a contract with.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is all wrong, sir. You say to them, I agreed to pay one half of my daughter's expenses. And if I believe what you say it was based on me being employed. Well, that's not true. That's not true, sir. Your agreeing to pay for half of her airfare was not based upon your being employed, because you didn't have that conversation with your daughter. When you said to your daughter, I'll pay for half of your airfare, you didn't say to her, on condition that I'm still working, right?
Right.
Okay. I had no control over my going on disability, which cut my salary in third. So what? What's that their problem? That's your problem, not theirs. What's the nature of your disability?
Stress.
And you came here? I can see from this rambling letter that you are stressed, Mr. Cooley, so I won't proceed any further. You owe these people an additional $214, and that's giving you every possible benefit of the doubt, sir, that the only thing you agreed to was to pay for one half of her airfare. I mean, I think that if you wanted to be a good guy, you would say to them, listen, I don't want you to be out any money, and I don't want our daughters who were good friends to be estranged, so I'm going to make it my business to see to it that you get the extra $50 a month until it's all paid off. But from a legal perspective, I can't do that. I can, however, find that you agreed to pay for half the airfare. You have already given them $150, leaving a balance of $214. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Parties are excused.
Diane Cowan is suing her son, 23-year-old Kenneth Cowan Jr., for car payments and for stealing her tax refund from their shared bank account.
Mrs. Cowan, this is your son. Your lawsuit claims 2 things. First, that you had an arrangement with your son wherein he would use your car and make the payments on it while he was using it until he purchased his own car. You claim that with regard to that portion of your complaint, he did make some payments, didn't pay them all, and ultimately you sent somebody down, your fiancé?
Yes.
Down to pick up the car because he had moved to a different state. So you want him to pay some $1,000 that he should have paid on the car. The second part of your complaint, which I really believe, based upon what I read, is what you're complaining about. You just tacked on, is that you and your son shared a joint bank account. At some point, he withdrew $2,000 from that joint bank account, and he withdrew that money, which was from your tax refund because you claimed him as a dependent for last year. And he says he's entitled to that money because he was going to file his own tax return as a single individual. But since you had already claimed him as a dependent, he couldn't claim himself. So he took the $2,000 because he said you weren't entitled to it. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I correct, Ms. Cowan, that but for the withdrawal from the bank, we wouldn't be bothering with any money he might owe on the car?
No, we had made a verbal agreement, and I told him that once he took the vehicle to Texas, that he would be responsible for the payments.
Did you have that agreement with your mother?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Fine. At that time, were you going to school, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you also working?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you working full-time or part-time?
Part-time.
Who was supporting you?
I was on academic scholarship and receiving money from Pell Grants.
Did your mother send you any money?
She may have given me a total of $500.
Okay. Is it correct, Ms. Cowan, that for the year 2004, your son was basically self-supporting?
No.
Well, how did you support him?
Okay, by me being a disabled veteran, it took care of his 2 years of college.
Just a second.
Okay.
You're being a disabled veteran and the government picking up part of his tuition means that we supported him, not you. Is it true that he was either self-supporting or on scholarships and or Pell Grants that he's going to have to return?
Yeah, he was on Pell Grants, but I supported him as far as sending monies for groceries or if he ran short.
How much money did you send him the year 2004?
I would say over $2,000.
Show me.
I don't have it as far as monetary back. Most of the time I would always deposit it in my account because we shared account.
I have bank statements showing to where there were deposits made on the account, and these are the only cash deposits on the account are ones that I made.
How many times did you withdraw money from this account, Mr. Cowan?
Very rare, maybe once a semester, if that.
So this was primarily your bank account, that you used this bank account to pay your bills?
Yes.
Okay. You have a copy of your tax returns from last year, sir?
Yes, ma'am. My W-2s and my tax return.
So you had an adjusted gross income of a little over $5,600.
Yes, ma'am.
And according to your statement, if I believed you, which I don't, at most you sent your son $2,000.
Right.
Then you are not entitled to claim him as a deduction because you didn't contribute more than 50% of his support. You were not entitled to claim him as a deduction.
Yes, but according to VA, if I had not claimed him as a dependent, then they would not have taken care of his bills. You know, I'm not a...
Just a second. Let us say that because of some regulation, you were required to claim him as a dependent, even though you did not contribute more than 50% of his support. Let's say that that's true. Then what you should have done was discuss it with your son and say, listen, for the purposes of the VA, so that you can continue to have all your classes covered or whatever percentage the VA covers, I have to claim you as a dependent. But I'm going to give you the $2,000. What would have been wrong with that?
Well, I agreed to that. And
so then why are you complaining that he took the $2,000 out of your account?
Because it was the procedures that he took. Now, he know normally there has not denied him of anything.
So you didn't like the fact that he did it in a sneaky way?
That's right.
Okay. She says she didn't like the idea that you were sneaky about it. Well, I think, Ms. Cowan, one of the reasons he might have been sneaky about it was because when he filed his tax returns, he filed them as an independent, and then he was told later that he was denied his refund because you had already claimed him as a dependent. Had your mother discussed the fact that she was going to claim you?
She had said she was going to try to claim me to recoup some money that I hadn't paid her on a car payment. She told this to my uncle.
Oh, well, I don't want to hear about the car payment. Listen to me, Ms. Cowan. As far as I'm concerned, you've got a son that's doing the right thing. If you had a car and you let him take the car so that he could go to school and look for a job, that's what you're supposed to do. You're his mother. How many children do you have?
I have 2.
Okay, well, it seems to me this one is doing okay, which means that your mother probably did something right.
Yes, ma'am.
Should have done the right thing. Shouldn't have made this situation so mucky. Ms. Cowan, irrespective of what he did, you're still his mother, and I sometimes wonder whether I would have, I don't have to wonder, I would not have pursued this matter in court. I would have said to him, it's not the right thing to do. What's your first name?
Kenneth.
It's not the right thing to do, Kenneth. You shouldn't have gone behind my back and taken the $2,000 out of the account. I was prepared to give it to you, but you shouldn't have just taken it. I'm not so sure that you were prepared to give it to him because, according to you, he owed you some money on this car nonsense. Can't tell you how many cars I bought my children. If you had not claimed your son as a dependent, what would have been your refund?
I would have gotten $1,913 from
And
that.
how much would you actually get?
$29.13.
Yes, sir.
When I asked my mother for her tax return, I was going to return whatever she didn't get for claiming me. She sent me a tax return that said she only got $300 for me, which was false.
But you got $1,000 for you.
Right.
Is that what you want, sir?
Yes.
Then you have to give your mother back $1,000 because you took out $2,000 from her account.
No, I was supposed to get $2,000 back, and I was
Listen to me. What your mother is saying is she was required by the VA to claim you as a dependent in order for you to get certain benefits. So, although if you filed for yourself as an independent, you would have gotten $2,000, if she didn't file for you as a dependent of hers, you wouldn't have gotten other benefits which far outweighed that $2,000. Are you following me?
Yes, ma'am.
So that you should not have taken out the $2,000 from the account because all she got, by virtue of her claiming you as a dependent, was an extra $1,000. So that's all you were entitled to. Are you following me?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yes.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000. That's all.
Mitchell Ergensen says pizza parlor owner Stephen Lindner owes for vandalism to his truck. Mitchell claims Stephen's employees doused it with salad dressing.
Mr. Urgensen, it is your claim that Mr. Lindner's employees vandalized your house and your car. And Mr. Lindner says he wasn't there. As far as he's concerned, there is no proof that his employees did anything to your house and your car. Who do you live with, sir?
Myself and my two daughters,
How old are your daughters?
17 and 19.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm an electrical contractor.
And you have a restaurant?
Yes.
Sometime in July, according to what I read, you ordered some food from Mr. Lindner's establishment. Have you ordered from him before?
Many a times.
What did you order?
Anapasta salad and a turkey sandwich.
And did they deliver it?
Yes.
Remember what date that was?
The 22nd is the date of this, yes.
No, the
The
date of
22nd.
the first
is when-
order.
Well, what
For
happened
a
was
sandwich and a salad.
we ordered a couple times and asked for extra Italian dressing prior
When
to
did you?
that.
Well, I understand
Okay.
that, sir. I read the complaint. I read your complaint very carefully. Sometime before this incident, you had ordered a sandwich and a salad.
Which was 2
with
weeks
as-
before.
That's what I want to know.
Thank you.
2 weeks before this incident. And you had ordered a sandwich and a salad with extra dressing for the salad. What kind of extra dressing did you want?
Italian dressing. A couple extra cups.
And had you ordered that before?
Yeah.
And had they always accommodated you before?
Yes.
Who was the salad and the sandwich for?
Me and my daughter. Actually, my oldest daughter.
Who was eating the salad? Who was eating the sandwich? Or were you sharing?
Share it.
And your order came, and they didn't send the extra dressing.
They didn't send any dressing.
So you called back the restaurant. And what did you say to them?
I asked them, they didn't bring me any dressing. I talked to one of their guys in there. He said, we're very sorry. We'll be out in 10 minutes. And I said, please do, because I don't want to wait another 40 minutes for like I had to wait for my order. I want the salad dressing right away. No problem, sir. We'll be right out there. Waited about 40 minutes, almost an hour. Nobody showed up at my door. I called and I said, can I talk to the manager? And he says, I am the manager. I said, well, I've been waiting for my dressing now an hour. They didn't bring me any. Well, I didn't know. He said, I didn't know anything about it. We have no drivers anymore. They all went home. And I got angry with him. I said, well, I want a credit on my food then. And he said he wasn't going to give me full credit. And I said, I would like full credit for $12. I couldn't eat anything.
You couldn't eat the sandwich?
Not by that time, because we normally put the salad dressing on the sandwich, too. That's why we order extra for the salad and the sandwich. The girls like it. They like the extra vinegar and stuff. So we got mad. The manager hung up on me. I tried to call back. Nobody answered. Nobody answered. So I let it go. And about 2 weeks later, I ordered the same meal. And when the driver got there, I said, we have a credit, and I shut the door.
Very grown up of you.
Yeah.
You think that was right?
Come see, come saw.
What is come see, come saw?
Well, I had a
Do you-
credit.
Do you think,
I mean, the
no,
guy
you-
agreed he was
no,
going to
no,
pay
no,
me
no,
half
no,
the
no, no,
credit.
no. Listen to me, sir.
Okay.
You said you wanted a credit.
No, the manager also told me he was going to give me a credit on the salad, but not the sandwich.
That's right. That's what you just told me. He said,
Right.
well, we will certainly, sir, give you a credit on the salad, because if you run the kind of house where you don't have any dressing at all in your house for 3 adults, if you can't eat the salad, we're sorry about that, but we're not going to give you credit on the sandwich. You decided you wanted a credit on both. So when you took your food and slammed the door in the driver's face, which is what you just told me that you did, that was the wrong thing to do.
Okay.
There were a lot of other things that you could have done other than stiff the driver. Because
Well, it wasn't the driver, it was the pizza
No,
place.
it's the driver. Because they're giving them the food, and when they come back and he says, listen, we went to somebody's house and they wouldn't give us any money, either one of two things happen. Either they say, well, we're taking it out of your money, or they call you. Did they call you?
No.
So you don't know whether the driver got stiffed with your $12 meal. Anyway, Mr. Ergenson, it was very immature of you. And what I'm surprised about is, evidently you are a single father raising two children. It would seem to me that you would have enough to occupy your plate other than engaging yourself in these petty little situations that cause nothing but problems for people. Are you telling me that your girls are so perfect that you have nothing else to worry about? Or maybe they're not so perfect that you got plenty to worry about, that you were taking it out on some stranger.
No, my girls are plenty perfect. They're very
They're
good
plenty
girls.
perfect. Well, then there's something wrong with you.
Okay.
All right. Now,
For a single father that runs a business for 20 years and raises two girls since they've been 2 and 4, I think I'm pretty good.
well, then I want to tell you something. If your girls are perfect and you run a nice business and you don't have enough to do with your time, I'd start volunteering a little bit more, because this business is ridiculous, petty baloney. So now what you're complaining about is that the next day,
No.
2 days later,
No.
that night,
That night, I had 4 guys come to my house and try to strong-arm me for $12 at my door and threaten to ask me to come outside so we can take care of outside.
okay.
And I
So
shut
you
the
had-
door in their face.
So this little escapade of yours, then 4 people came back to your
Yeah,
house
to threaten me
and
for
wanted
this
the
place.
12, just a second, and said they wanted the $12. And
Yeah.
again, you slammed the door in their
No, I
face.
told them I have a credit. I said, where's the manager? The guy, this one over here, says, I am the manager. And I said, you're the manager from the place? Well, great. Do you remember this? He says, no. And the other guy that's not here today says, oh, you were the one that complained about the salad dressing. I said, so you know about it. You know what happened 2 weeks ago. He said, yes. And I said, okay, then you have a credit with me. If you have a problem, tell the owner to call me. We'll deal with it in court. If you want to sue me for 12, sue me for 12. So that's how it happened.
Volunteer.
They threatened me in my house.
Volunteer. It was a stupid thing to do. Should have written it off. You understand?
Yes.
You're dealing with somebody who's got a little too much time on his hands and a little bit too much aggression in his gut. First of all, Mr. Ergenson, when you order a salad with dressing and a sandwich, the sandwich dressing. So what you're doing is saying, when I asked you, well, why couldn't you eat the sandwich? You said, we'd like to put the dressing on the sandwich. You're not entitled to that. You're not entitled to that.
But
the
that's-
sandwich comes along.
Yeah.
The dressing comes with a salad. You want dressing for your sandwich, go to the store and buy a bottle of dressing so you have dressing for the sandwich.
But it's not the same dressing. Their salad dressing has their own taste and their own life. It's like when you go to different restaurants. When you go into different restaurants, do you like different salad dressings that different restaurants serve you?
Mr. Ergenson, listen
That's
to me
what
very
happened.
carefully, sir.
Okay.
Then you don't say, send me extra dressing for the sandwich that I'm not entitled to. You say, I'm prepared to pay you extra to send me extra dressing because I like dressing on my
If they
sandwich.
said it cost extra, I would have been happy to pay for it.
Did you? Just a second.
Happy to pay for
You
it.
were getting something for nothing. You wanted something for nothing. You're
No,
not
I did
entitled
not.
to that.
No, I did not.
Mr. Ergenson, you're a big baby.
Okay.
That doesn't
Thank
mean
you.
you're a big baby.
Thank you.
That doesn't mean your people were entitled to vandalize his house. Now, Mr. Ergenson, I will take a look at the photographs of your house
And my car.
and your car.
And I have the cups that they used.
I don't care about the
All
cups that
right.
they
And I have a
used.
new cup, too. But shows in the pictures. And I also have repairs that you might want to see.
Let me see the bills. Mr. Lindner, the way to respond to someone who is behaving in an immature way is not to stoop to their level. There isn't a question in my mind, after examining these photographs, that this vandalism to the plaintiff's house was done by someone in your employ or in the employ of the restaurant. No question. You get me?
Yes, ma'am.
Ah. Now, I don't know whether you went home. I don't know whether they said, listen, He deserves it. What he did was he was acting like a baby, acting like a big baby. But you don't take the law into your own hands and commit a crime.
Absolutely not.
You want to file a police report and say he stole food from me? That's your prerogative. He did. It would be no different from him coming into a restaurant, having a meal, and getting up and leaving. And saying, well, the last time I was here, I didn't have a good meal. And I wanted a credit, and they wouldn't give me a credit. So this time, I'm enjoying my meal, but I'm not paying for it. No different. What he did was, he stole from you. And for that, oh, yes, you did, sir. There is no difference from what you did than if you walked into their restaurant or walked into I'm speaking. No difference than if you went into a restaurant, ate, didn't like the meal, they wouldn't give you a credit. And a week later, go back to the same restaurant, order the same meal, and get up and leave. And if the police came, they would have arrested you for theft of services, because that's what it is. They still had no right to vandalize your house. Do you understand? Yes. You don't resort to that sort of behavior because he acted like a jerk.
And came to my house and threatened me in my house.
No, ma'am.
And my daughter will attest to all that, too.
Listen, I don't want to get your daughter involved. It's bad enough she had to be involved. It's bad enough she had to be involved with it because of your stupidity.
From these guys doing this.
No, listen to me.
She was.
Listen to me. She was up a whole night and frightened because her father acted like a jerk. Okay. That's why she was up all night, because her father acted like a big baby. Cost you $229.23. Is that right?
And lost wages in my work.
Well, that's too bad. Counted lost wages in acting like a jerk. They're not allowed to vandalize your property. Cost you $229. I hope it felt good. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
$229.23 less 12. $217.23. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Laura Schmidt says Cody and Brandy Mather owe for breach of contract regarding the sale of a weekend cabin.
Well, folks, I must tell you that I have been involved in the sale of property over the course of my lifetime, and this is one of the dumbest contracts that I have ever seen. And why three seemingly intelligent people would enter into such a ridiculous agreement is beyond me. And why the attorneys who represented you in the sale of this cabin would allow you to enter into this agreement. Maybe it's because you're young, but you're not that young. So this is what it's about, Bert. Listen, careful attention.
Got it.
Miss Schmitz had a cabin that she was very fond of. It was a vacation cabin. However, as fond as she was of the cabin, she decided to sell it. And she sold it to Mr. and Mrs. Mather, a lovely young couple who wanted a vacation place. Where is this cabin located?
Sasheen Lake, Washington.
Beautiful, on a lake. However, Miss Schmitz wasn't prepared to totally let go of this cabin, so she maintained, through a letter of intent with the Mathers, an agreement that twice a year she was going to be able to use the cabin for a week each. Once Memorial Day, where she had a big party every year, and once during the summer. These folks agreed to that condition. Now, the first week she used the cabin, according to her, everything was okay.
Yes.
But when she was planning the second weekend, Mr. and Mrs. Mather were having second thoughts already about this agreement. So they sort of, according to her, made it unpleasant. They didn't give her the key to the cabin. They said, we're not giving you a key. We'll unlock it, and when you leave, you lock it. Which sort of, to her, made her a prisoner in the cabin because she couldn't leave for the whole week. She was afraid the cabin would be unlocked and unattended to. And then she found her stuff piled up because she sold the cabin furnished. Anyway, because of what she considered a breach of their contract, she hired an attorney to sort of get involved. So she is suing them now because she wants the attorney's fees that she expended to sort of make sure this weekend took place. And then when she went there, you flew there, is that right?
Yes, it's over 300 miles from where I live.
So did you fly, is my question.
Yes.
To make a long story short, she didn't stay. So she wants them to pay for her airfare and for some stuff of hers that she says was missing from the cabin. I don't know what could be missing since she sold it. I don't understand that. Mr. and Mrs. Mather say, well, they really weren't thrilled with her coming for the second weekend because they had heard via neighbors about the previous weekend, but they never told her that she couldn't come, and that when she was there previously, she broke some things, she took some things, and also for lawyers' fees because they had to get their lawyer involved to talk to her lawyer about this alleged breach of contract for the second week vacation. Did I sort of outline it pretty well?
Yes, you
Yes,
did.
perfect.
Idea was this sale with tentacles.
Laura.
Your Honor, it was my idea because I was giving up thousands of dollars in a prepayment penalty so that they could get their own financing.
You bought the cabin when?
In '94.
And you bought
a
it?
20-year contract.
Which said?
$1,000 for every year and partial year that you end the contract, and it was an assumable contract.
Just a second. You're talking about a mortgage?
Correct, a contract.
Oh, just a second. It's not a contract. You're talking about you had a mortgage. That was an assumable mortgage.
With a prepayment penalty.
Oh, now I understand. We're talking
I'm
apples
glad
and
you
oranges.
understand.
All right. She had an assumable mortgage, but if they wanted to pay off the mortgage, if she wanted to pay off the mortgage early, there was a penalty. If she got somebody to assume her mortgage on the cabin, then there wasn't a penalty. And you did or did not assume the mortgage?
We didn't assume the mortgage.
You didn't assume the mortgage, so that it cost you $10,000 extra in your way of thinking to sell it to these people.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, let me tell you this, Ms. Schmitz, that's a skewed way of thinking because all you have to do is find another prospective buyer who'd pay you an additional $10,000. But what you don't do is say, well, I'm going to sell it to you, but I want to be able to use it twice a year for free, forever, because that's dumb.
Thank you.
Right?
It's very.
It's not the last cabin in the world.
No.
So, how long have you been married?
8 years?
8 years, yeah.
How difficult is marriage?
It's hard.
What?
It's a lot of work.
And you love him?
Yes.
Right? You don't love her?
No.
You just signed on to be married to her
I know.
forever.
That's right.
And our family
Yeah.
warned us
This is
and warned us. I know.
family.
My mom. I know. She knew.
You don't love her. She's a stranger. You don't know if she's a nut. You don't know what her friends are like. You don't know if she's a slob. You don't know, whatever. And you have married her for as long as you have that cabin. And I don't even know if this provision of 2 weeks goes with the sale of the cabin, does it?
No, it was a
it
side.
doesn't.
So now I'm really going to try to help you. What's it going to take, Miss Schmitz, to let them out of this stupid deal?
Well, she told me on this.
What is it going to take, Miss Schmitz, to let them out of this stupid deal?
I would like to be paid for the money that I lost.
$4,000.
No, a lot more than $4,000. And today is not about the prepayment penalty.
Just a second. Who do you live with?
Myself.
You have to find something else to do with the next 5 years of your life other than sue these people. Because the contract that you entered into was dumb. The prepayment penalty for your mortgage had absolutely nothing to do with selling them this property with this 2-week provision. It's dumb, and you should finish it today. And you should allow me to help you. I'm prepared to help you. If you don't want me to help you, I don't think you're going to like the judgment today. Do we understand each other? You have to find another purpose for living other than this cabin. You have to let it go. Now, if it's going to cost $4,000 to let them out of this ridiculousness, it will give you the opportunity to spend the next 4 years someplace else, $1,000 a week, celebrating your birthday, Memorial Day, or whatever else you want to celebrate. But you have to let them out of this ridiculous bargain. Because otherwise what they're going to do is, as much as they love the cabin, they're going to sell it to somebody, maybe even a relative, to get out from under this ridiculous commitment that they made. So it's my job to try to reduce the amount of litigious behavior we have in this country, not expand it. So I am prepared to help you, Ms. Schmitz. Do you want me to help you?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you again. How much is it going to cost to let them out of this ridiculous contract?
Your Honor, I'm out $4,000 in addition to the thousands I paid in the prepayment penalty.
They're not responsible for your prepayment penalty. That's your bag. You could have said to the realtor, one of the conditions of a purchaser is someone who is going to assume my mortgage so it won't cost me an additional $10,000. How much did you pay for the property, Ms. Schmitz?
$62,094.
How much did you sell it for?
$131.
So that's not bad, and you had the use and enjoyment of it, and you doubled your money. And even if you say, well, you had a prepayment penalty on your mortgage, take off $10,000, $121. So you doubled your money in 10 years. That's pretty good, right? So I'm going to ask you again, what is it going to cost to let these people out of this ridiculous contract that you both entered into?
Your Honor, I wasn't prepared to talk about the prepayment penalty.
I just talked about the prepayment penalty. Did I make sense to you?
Yes.
You think it's going to make more sense to retain a lawyer, sue them, continue to sue them, because the lawyer's going to charge you money. I would charge you money at the rate of $500 an hour. And a lot more aggravations. All I'm telling you is you have to find a life other than suing these people. It's over. And I am prepared to help you. I would take me up on my offer.
I will.
Good. So let's go again. How much is it going to cost to let them out of this ridiculous contract? Then I'm going to ask them if they're prepared for it.
Since the maximum I'm allowed to ask for of the $15,000 is $4,000, I guess that's the maximum I can receive.
Well, I'm going to let you amend your complaint to ask for $5 because that's the jurisdictional limit of this court.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to come to you. Ms. Schmitz is prepared to have me enter an order that says, upon the payment of $5,000, that she will declare null and void the requirement that she use the house for 2 weeks a year, and then you will both withdraw these claims. What do you think?
I agree.
That sounds good.
Sounds great.
Very smart.
Now we are.
Okay. You have a copy of the letter of intent that forms the basis of your lawsuit? You prepared to withdraw at this point your counterclaim?
We do.
It's going to be a very simple order that I will sign, you will sign. So I'm going to ask you to wait outside. Bird will call you. Yes.
Your Honor, in good faith, I offered them the use of negate that offer.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We don't want to use her home.
Absolutely. You don't want to use your home. You don't use their home. Go. Goodbye. Have a happy life. Good luck.
Thank you.
Ashley Coggins says she loaned money to ex-boyfriend Daniel Piper so he could buy a 1990 Mustang. Ashley says Daniel has never paid her back.
Ms. Coggins, according to the complaint that I read, you and Mr. Piper lived together for a period of time.
Yes.
And you took out a loan.
Yes.
And the loan was to be primarily used for a car for you. What kind of a car did you buy?
1990 Mustang.
How much did you pay for it?
$3,200.
How much of a loan did you give him?
$4,500.
What'd you do with the rest?
Well, she got a portion of the money, approximately $300 to $400, and the rest of the money I used to plate the car and insure the car.
And then shortly after the loan, the two of you broke up.
Yes.
He made some payments on the loan and then stopped.
Yes.
You want him to pay the loan.
Yes.
Mr. Piper says that he was forced to sell the car, stop making the payments because you moved out of the apartment, leaving him with the lease and the bills. And he couldn't do everything, so he stopped making the car payments.
Well, I paid some payments. I did not.
How many payments did you make?
I believe 4.
And in what amount?
122 and some change.
Does that sound right?
I believe he made 4, but only $55 have been made since the payments were always late. And they were adding the interest and the payments were always late. He's only actually paid $55 on the loan.
Can I see your last statement, please?
Yes.
So I can look at it. Well, the balance is $4,445.20, but some of this is yours.
Right.
Well, let's say there's $4,000 left on the loan. Now, did you both sign a lease for this apartment?
Yes.
When did you sign the lease?
March of 2004.
And when did you move out?
I moved out July of 04.
Are you still in the apartment?
Yes.
What was the rent on the apartment?
$735 a month.
And what was your financial arrangement with regard to the rent?
I was supposed to pay all of the bills, the electric and the cable and the cell phone bills, and him and his brother were supposed to pay the rent. They were supposed to
three of you
split
living
it.
there?
Yes.
Is that right?
My brother did move in But we were not splitting the rent. That wasn't the agreement.
Yes, it was.
Why not?
Due to the fact my brother had just got back from the Navy, he was in a tight spot, he needed a place to live. I let him move in with us under the agreement that he would pay $200 a month.
Is he paying $200 a month?
Yes.
Then you're almost whole, sir. If the rent is $735, let him pay half the rent. He's not in a bind anymore.
I understand, but he's
Right.
also not on the lease.
I don't care whether he's on the lease or not. He's living there.
Yes.
I mean, your defense to this whole action with regard to the car is that she left you with the lease, which I would take into consideration, except for the fact that you moved your brother into the apartment and he can pay half the rent. I mean, he's a big boy.
Yeah, but what was I supposed to do when she left the lease, didn't have somebody else move in?
Listen to me very carefully.
Okay.
When you moved into the apartment together,
Mm-hmm.
the two of you, in March of '04, did your brother move in with you
Yes.
at the same time?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
With no agreement that he was to pay at least a third of the rent?
No. The agreement was $200.
Well, you better change the agreement, sir. Circumstances change. He's living there with you. Now, put your hand down. You sold the car.
Correct.
Two.
Kid named John.
Did you put a sign in the window?
No, I didn't.
Well, how did you sell it?
The kid came to my mother's house where the car was parked in the backyard. He had them get a hold of me because he wanted to purchase the car.
You mean it was like Karnak? He said, oh, this must be a car that's for sale?
Well, the person that I bought the car from was friends with this kid. He was looking for that kind of car, so he came to me.
How much did he pay for the car?
How much did he pay for it?
That's my question, sir. It doesn't give you an opportunity to think about an answer.
I just
you should
didn't
know
hear
that.
you.
You should know that like that.
Yes,
Don't play with me.
He paid $1,100 for the car.
Why didn't you give that $1,100 to her?
Why would I give it to her?
Well, who's supposed to pay this loan?
Me.
But you haven't been doing that.
At that time, I was still paying the payment.
But then you stopped.
Correct.
So why didn't you give her the $1,100?
Because I was paying the loan at the time. It was.
But
up
then
to
you
date.
stopped.
The $1,100 by that point was gone. I mean, the situation I was in, I didn't
Who is this?
have. This is my girlfriend.
What is she here for?
Because she's been the one dealing with Ashley during this whole thing.
Why is she dealing with Ashley?
Because I repeatedly asked her not to call me. If she needed to get a hold of me, I asked her to ask her mother to call me, to email me, or to have.
I don't want to hear you unless I ask you a question.
I repeatedly asked
I'm
her
getting
not to call
frustrated
me.
with you, Mr. Piper.
Okay.
I'm getting frustrated with you, Mr. Piper. Somebody takes out a loan for you. You promise to pay them. You stop paying them. You sell the only equity that exists, which is your car.
Well, to tell you the truth, the car wasn't part of the loan.
Well, what was the loan for?
I'm saying there was no. That wasn't collateral on the loan or anything like that. Okay, this loan was just a personal loan. It wasn't a car loan.
I understand what it was, sir.
Okay.
She took out the loan to enable you to spend $3,200 plus tags and fees to buy a car.
Correct.
Of course I'm correct. You think you're smarter than I am?
No, ma'am.
On your smartest day. You're not as smart as I am on my worst day.
Okay.
What do you want?
I was wondering if I could say something.
Of course. I haven't had lunch.
Well, Danny was with Ashley throughout their whole high school career.
I don't give a, listen to me.
I
listen to me
understand that.
carefully. I don't give a rat's behind whether they were soulmates in utero.
Okay.
He took money from her.
I understand
listen,
that.
Try to be quiet and watch my mouth. He took money from her to buy a car. He stopped making payments on the car. He stopped making payments to her for the loan that she took out to enable him to buy a car. And then he has the gall to sell the car and not give her the proceeds.
She lived with Danny, was very unsatisfied with whatever Danny did. Left, did not pay any rent, didn't pay anything, asked him, oh, she is always in contact. Did you pay the rent? Did you pay this? Did you pay that? If you walked out, you are supposed to find someone to take your place. She did not do that. She left Danny with everything. Left him with the rent, the utilities. He had shut-off notices.
Listen to me.
A roof over your head is more important than a loan payment
When
that
my
she
mouth
should have never...
starts to move, yours is not moving. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Danny has a brother, a big, strong guy who served his country, who came back, and who now has a roof over his head, cable, gas, electric, rent. And these two boys have to manage to pay $735 rent. And they can get that by collecting cans if they need more money. His brother, if he is trying to find a job, can go and work in a fast food place for minimum wage. You can make $350 a month doing that. He has no right not to pay his debts. And if you are making excuses for him,
I'm not.
Good. Then you deserve each other. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,000. That's all. Step out.
Carolyn Doyle is suing her ex-boyfriend, Matthew Peterson, for a loan to fix his teeth. Matthew says he helped Carolyn fix her house.
Miss Doyle, you used to live with this gentleman. How long did you live with him?
Matthew and I started dating July 4th of 1999, and he lived with myself and my children off and on for a total of about 2 years. 1 year, then moved out, then moved back in for a year, then moved back out.
And during that time, which we'll pinpoint better later, you claim that without your authorization, he forged your name as a co-signer to a loan for some dental work that he wanted.
I don't know if he ever signed my name. He did open an account and took out a dental loan using my Social Security number, and it shows up on my credit record as
Okay, but you never signed it.
No, I did not.
Well, so somebody signed your name to it.
I never saw the documents, Your Honor. Okay.
I assume he has the documents somewhere in his pocket. In any event, he didn't pay the loan?
Correct.
And it's negatively impacted on your credit?
Correct.
You no longer are together, and you want him to pay the bill?
Correct.
Smile pretty, Mr. Peterson. What was wrong with your teeth?
2 porcelain crowns on my front teeth, and both of them were fractured. And
So it was cosmetic work.
more or less, without them, though, I just have 2 posts there,
Not attractive, but clearly you can live that way.
I suppose.
Now, when did you want to replace these 2 porcelain crowns?
I was living with it cracked for probably about a year or so, and then in the process of chewing gum, it completely broke off one afternoon, and I was left with just the post that goes under the crown, my real tooth, and it was somewhat of an emergency at that point. You know, the following morning, the dentist squeezed me in, and
Now, were you and Miss Doyle living together at the time?
no.
Were you still seeing each other
Yes.
exclusively?
Yes.
Any reason why you weren't living together?
We lived together when I owned my condo, and I wanted to flip that into a single-family home because I have 3 kids, and I wanted him to have a nice home with a backyard in a neighborhood, and he didn't agree with my decision to sell the condo. I was buying it on my own. He wasn't buying it with me, but he disagreed with my decision to sell the condo and buy the house. So when I
Well,
sold...
just my own curiosity, why?
I think he thought things were fine the way they were, and so why move?
Okay, so that's when he moved out, but you still continued to see each other.
Correct.
So now the dentist squeezes you in August.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm listening.
Okay, I went to the dentist's office in the morning upon looking at the other front tooth that was fractured as well, so they said, we have to take care of both of them. I couldn't cover it on such short notice, so they said, well, you can go ahead and apply for this in-house credit we have here, which I did, was denied. They said, do you have a co-signer? At that point, I called Carolyn from the office, and she said, yeah, here's my number, here's the Social Security number, and I'll be back. You know, I'll have to go down there and actually sign the document at a later date, which I don't know if that ever happened or not. And they proceeded with the work, and that was it.
Why didn't you pay the bill?
I was making monthly payments.
Now you're looking at your shoes.
I made the first couple payments, and then I came late on one. She said, I can't have this affecting my credit payments, and then she said, let me just pay off the whole loan, and you can just pay me. And then when we ultimately ended up breaking up, walked out, and that was the end of that. And I had done considerable amounts of work on her house, remodeling, fixing it up,
Which
painting.
I paid him for.
Just please don't interrupt.
I'm sorry.
And I just kind of figured the whole thing was a wash. It was easier just to get out of each other's lives and move on.
So you mean you stuck Miss Doyle, who is a single parent, raising 3 children, with bills for your cosmetic dentistry? I mean, you expect me to accept that, sir? And you think that I am not going to humiliate you in front of 10 million people? Go ahead.
Upon our last conversation when I left, I was served with papers days later, so there was never any opportunity to discuss any kind of payment plan. She never asked me for the money.
Why should she have to ask you for anything? How old are you?
32.
You work?
Yes, ma'am.
You have children?
No.
So whatever work you do, you just manage to take care of yourself,
Correct.
right? Now, what about Miss Doyle? Does she work?
Yes, she does.
And she takes care of 3 children?
Yes, she does.
And she runs a house? Let me ask you a question. When you were living in the house, did she have household help?
No, myself.
Did she have, yeah, I know how helpful you are. Did she have household help?
No,
Who did the laundry?
she did.
Who cleaned the bathrooms?
She did.
Who had a full-time job?
She did.
Who had 3 children?
She does.
Who had 2 cracked porcelain crowns?
That's me.
Are you embarrassed?
When you lay it out like that, yes, I am. But
Well, if your mother didn't lay it out for you like that, I'm going to lay it out for you like that. How much was your dental work?
all said and done, approximately $2,700.
How much of that did you pay?
About $300.
What kind of car do you drive?
Ford truck,
What year?
2000.
Were you making payments on it in 2004?
Yes.
Were you paying rent in 2004?
Yes.
You get where I'm going?
Yes, I do.
Peterson. Anything else you want to say?
I'd like to add just the extent of the work I did around her house. It was a verbal agreement.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Peterson. I just asked you a few questions. When you were living together, did you take a shower?
Yes,
Who cleaned the bathroom?
she did.
When you were living together, did you change your underwear at least every other day?
Yes, ma'am.
Who did the laundry?
She did.
You get
Not
my,
exclusively.
You get my drift?
I get your drift.
I won't even go into other more intimate details, sir, but I can almost guarantee you this. Believe me, you got the better end of the bargain. She knows what I mean. So do most of the other women. You owe her $2,400. Pay it. Thank you. That's all.
Diana Galarzo says her fiance's estranged wife, Myrna Cosio, owes for burning a graduation dress she bought for her daughter. Diana also says Myrna started an argument at the ceremony.
Ms. Cosio, you are currently separated from your husband. Is that right? You've been separated for about 3 years. Yes. Is he here today?
Yes, he is.
Yes, I am.
And according to your answer in this case, you separated from him because he was a big problem.
Yes.
That's why you separated.
Yes.
You filed for divorce.
He did.
He did in December.
Yes.
And hopefully that divorce will be finalized soon. The two of you have 2 children.
Correct.
The plaintiff is his fiancée.
Correct.
And you've been together for about a year.
Yes.
And you're planning to be married as soon as the divorce is finalized.
That's correct.
Do you live together?
Yes, we do.
How long have you been living together?
For about 8 months.
According to your complaint, you gave one of the girls, one of their daughters, who was graduating from elementary school,
Yes, that's correct.
3 outfits. And according to you, Ms. Casio destroyed those outfits. She was annoyed at something. And then later at the graduation made a terrible scene at the graduation,
Yes.
which embarrassed and humiliated you. Ms. Casio says that the outfits weren't destroyed, and she says that you had no business being at the graduation. You should have stayed home. She told her separated husband that he shouldn't bring you, and he defied her and brought you, and that's what caused the incident at the graduation. Is that right?
That's right.
Well, let me straighten you out on that score because that's freshest in my mind. You have no business telling him who he can bring to his daughter's graduation. This child has 2 parents, and you're no more of a parent than her father is. You don't have any right to tell him who he can bring to the graduation and who he cannot. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
So what do you think gave you the right to tell your husband not to bring her to the graduation?
I didn't tell my husband, I told my daughter.
Ugh, that's even worse. That you told your daughter to tell her father that he should leave her home? Is that what you did?
Exactly, that's what I did. Judge.
You're outrageous. That's an outrageous thing to do on many fronts. First of all, you never use a child to transmit messages from one parent to another. Certainly nothing negative. If you want to say, listen, would you like to come to my house for a graduation party? That's a nice thing. But you never use a child as a telephone to transmit a negative message from one parent to another. That makes you a bad mother. You don't want to be a bad mother, do you?
No.
Well, I'm telling you that was something that only a bad mother would do. So I would rethink that. Having said that, You have no business directing what goes on at your daughter's graduation. It's not your graduation. It's your daughter's graduation. And unless your daughter doesn't want her for some reason, she should be there. She's part of her life. You may not like it. That comes under the category of too bad. You got to get used to it. You got it?
Yes.
You have any questions for me?
Nope.
Good. Now, what kind of a scene did you make at graduation?
I didn't make no scene.
What did she do at graduation?
Your Honor, I have a video cassette of her behavior.
I'd like to see it.
It's right here. And I have never met her, and why she acted this way and insulted me in front of everyone and made a scene, especially Erica started crying. The other daughter with her 3 infant, you know.
Excuse me? What did you call me?
Stop it.
What did you call me?
Mom.
That's what I told you.
You're
Why?
stupid.
Because you are.
It's Erica's graduation.
Why? You need God.
Because you are what?
You need God in your life.
Really?
Yes.
Mom, stop.
Yes. You do. I have never done anything to you.
Why did you call her? Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Why did you call her a name?
Because I was upset that she was there at my daughter's graduation, Judge.
You owe her an apology. Your behavior was outrageous. And I'm going to tell you something. If you don't decide that you're going to change your way of doing business, you're going to lose custody of your daughters. I'm telling you that. I'm an old family court judge. And I'm telling you that if you're going to put your daughters in between their parents, and if you're going to behave in an irrational way, you will eventually lose custody of your girls because they will say, I don't want to live with my mother. She's a nut. Now, what did you do with the outfits that she brought for your daughter? And I better get a truthful answer, otherwise I'm going to have to embarrass you and bring your daughter here. So I want you to tell me what you did with the 3 outfits.
I didn't do anything.
Where are they?
I don't know what she's talking about.
Your Honor, I have a recording of the daughter on June 24th where she called my cell phone and pictures of my outfits burned.
I'd like to see them, please. Where were these pictures taken?
Apparently, she burned them, and either she walked into my property or threw them right next to my truck, keyed my car, and I have a police report.
Oh, well, she's crazy. Sir, I think that you ought to go into court and seek custody of your daughters. I wouldn't let my daughter stay with her. There's something madly wrong with her. Mr. Casio, step up. Step up, sir.
Yes, Your
Listen
Honor.
to me very carefully. How old are your daughters?
12 and 16.
Well, the 16-year-old daughter is going to tell you where she wants to live.
Okay.
And unfortunately for her, she probably will say, I have to stay with my mother because I feel sorry for her. But certainly, if her behavior continues to be so irrational, you might find it in your 12-year-old's best interest to pursue custody of that child, because somebody who behaves in this fashion is not capable of taking care of a child.
I agree.
That's my judgment. Now, 12-year-old probably is not in physical harm in her custody, but she certainly is emotionally in danger, being with somebody who has so much anger. Who are you?
I'm her friend.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, totally.
Is there anything that I said that you find wrong?
Not anything you said, but things she said.
Anything I said?
Not a thing that you said.
That's all. I said anybody who behaves this way for no reason, who can do this, who uses their child as a messenger for hateful messages, is a bad mother. Because a good mother doesn't do that. Go ahead.
Your Honor, I was spending the night before the graduation at Myrna's house to go to the graduation, and I
Just a minute. You're her friend and you were going to graduation?
Yes.
What gives you the right to go to graduation as a friend?
Because her daughters like me.
What gives you the right as a friend to go to their graduation? Because their mother invited you?
Yes.
That's why she was there. Now let me ask you this question. Would you believe that he was acting like a nut if he came up to you and called you vile and vicious names and told you to get out because he didn't want you at the graduation? Would you think he was acting like a lunatic?
Not necessarily.
Well, what would you think of his behavior?
If, Listen, if I had been told prior to coming that I wasn't wanted there by my daughter calling.
Just a second.
Erica,
Her daughter did not say, I don't want you to come to graduation. No, listen to me very carefully, madam. She said, I told my daughter I didn't want her at the graduation. That's what she said.
Oh, let's bring Erica.
I'm not going to do that because that's what a bad mother would do.
She's not asking to bring Erica. I am.
I'm telling you, she didn't turn around and say to you, oh, I wouldn't do that to my daughter. She's a bad mother. She's so full of anger and hate in her heart that it obscures her judgment as far as being a good mother. And she better change, otherwise her daughters will grow up to hate her. They will hate her.
And as far as her going over there and doing whatever she claims she did, it didn't happen because I was with her.
I'd like to hear what the child said on the answering machine. Could you bring it up here, Bert, so I can listen to it?
Go ahead, press the middle button. That's a message she left on my cell phone at 6:20.
My mom is burning your clothes. You think your daughter was lying when she says my mom is burning your clothes?
We had an argument that morning, Your Honor.
So you just think it's serendipity that your daughter calls and says my mom is burning your clothes and the clothes turned up burned in front of her house. You think that those two things just came aligned in this universe? You better go see a good therapist, madam. You need a good therapist. Do you work?
Yes, I do work.
What kind of job do you have?
I'm a phlebotomist.
Better spend a little more time at work and a little less time hating. Spend a little less time hating. It didn't work out. 52% of the marriages in this country don't work out. She didn't steal him away from you. You threw him out. That's what you told me. You said you didn't like the way he behaved, so you threw him out. She found him. You should be grateful.
She can keep him.
Listen to me. That's right. You should be grateful instead of having a heart full of anger. Believe me, if you have a heart full of anger, you're never going to find anybody, madam. Nobody wants somebody who's miserable and angry. You'll spend the rest of your life alone. How much did you spend for the outfits?
I have the receipts
Just
here.
tell me how much you spent for the outfits.
180.
Now I'll take the receipts, Bird.
Plus pain and suffering and...
You don't get pain and suffering.
Loss of work and...
Listen to me very carefully, Ms. Galazzo.
Yes.
What you wanted was for her to learn a lesson. I don't know whether her ears were open. If they were, fine. If not, she's going to be the loser, as are her two children. She's responsible for the burnt clothes because she burned them. Her bad behavior has just been memorialized in front of 10 million people. Unless she changes her course of conduct, she's already been pre-warned that her children are going to grow up hating her. You can either put a period and move on and say, I had a marriage, it didn't work out. But out of this marriage came two lovely children. Just listen to me carefully. And then try to put yourself on some medication, maybe. If you don't already take it. I have two beautiful children. I want to devote myself to them and to making myself a happy life. And I don't want to be angry with somebody who's taking a burden off my shoulders. And you don't control what happens with your girls because your girls have two parents. And you won't have them at all in your life if what you continue to do is to disrespect their father. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $180. That's all.